started. We're going to change the schedule. And we're going to begin with community gardens first. Community gardens, come on up.
Okay. All right.
Do you probably got 2 seats down here and 1 seat here?
James, can you move over here so they can sit next to each other?
He's going to move here, and then y'all can sit 1, 2, 3 together here. McKeel just have to sit in the back for a minute. The page is gardens.
Can you sit closer, Brittany?
Chapter 7.
Good morning, dear. How are you?
Oh, I saw you guys before lunch, so thanks for sticking around.
Is it okay if I no worries?
All right, we're at Chapter 7, 7.4. All right, Director, we'll open it up. Then we'll go to our partners for brief comments, and we'll go to committee for questions.
Thank you so much, Chairman. I have with me at the table today Commissioner James Green, who will introduce our partners in the Community Gardens program.
You gotta press the button at the bottom.
It didn't work.
Yes.
Oh, there it is. Okay. Thank you. Good afternoon, Mr. Chairman, members of the committee. So we're on Summer Sprout Gardens, and we have joining us today our members of Ohio State University Extension, who provide the programming based on the lots that we lease, both from the land banks and internal lots that are owned, privately owned as well for the program. It's a program that's been around since the 70s, which OSU Extension actually has been facilitating the program since '81. And I'm joined today by Nicole DeBose, who's director of the program, as well as Brittany Hubbard and Morning Robinson, and they can all introduce themselves, and then Nicole will present on what is done.
All right, is everyone's green light on?
Yes.
Green light is on? Okay. The green light is on, the red light is off, obviously. And please just kind of speak into the mic for us and make sure all questions or answers are go through the chair as well. All right? All right. Good afternoon.
Okay. Good afternoon, everyone. Through the chair to the council, my name is Brittany Hubbard, and I'm the Summer Sprout Community Garden Program Coordinator. Some of you may remember me from last year. I was here with our former A&R educator, Maggie. I didn't really do too much talking just because I was new to my position. But now that I kind of have a year and a little bit over a year under my belt, I feel that I can confidently speak about the Summer Sprout program. Today, like Commissioner Green said, I'm joined with Nicole DuBois and Morning Robinson. So if any of you would like to give a brief introduction to that, would be okay.
Good afternoon. My name is Nicole DeBose. I'm the County Director for OSU Extension here. Thank you for our continued partnership, and we look forward to another year of successful gardening. As usual, if you all have concerns about gardens in your wards, you're more than welcome to reach out to us. We have partnered with council offices over the years to rectify different situations such as maintenance and things. So thank you.
Thank you. And what number is that? Is that the 429-8200? What number do we call?
429-8200. My direct number, or you can, Brittany.
My direct number is 330-599-77. I'm blanking on the last two numbers, but I can get that to you at the end of the year. I can get that to you at the end of the
7709. That's my direct number.
330?
Yes. 330-599-7709. And that forwards to my cell, so I always answer it.
Okay. And you're Ms. DeBose?
Yes.
Ms. DeBose?
Yes.
And then, Brittany, you'll get us the last two of your...
I believe it's 36. Yeah.
Okay.
So 599-777. What is it?
7736.
7736.
Okay. And if we have issues with gardens or for maintenance, or like I was just telling the director, I got one in my ward now on Iroquois and 131st Street that I was by there, and the hoop house is tore up, it's overgrown. I don't believe the individuals who were operating that garden are still. I think they're they've moved on, and it's in a bit of a disarray. So we'll talk about that.
Okay,
all right.
absolutely.
And go ahead.
My name is Morning Robinson. I'm the Agriculture and Natural Resources Educator with OSU Extension, Cuyahoga County.
All right. Thank you. And to the committee, we have a sheet that provides ward highlights that was presented to us regarding the 2022 Summer Sprout Community Gardening Program. Snapshot, it gives us information, as we always get every year, good information. And it has provided us our 2022 Summer Community Gardening Program. We have beautiful pictures, information, and descriptions about what each garden provides in the book, as we always get every year as well. Any questions from the committee? Councilman Harsh? Councilman Jones will follow.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Love summer sprouts for years. When I was at Metro West, we were in wards 14 and 12, and I see their output is tremendous. 3,300 pounds of produce from ward 14, 4,100 pounds of produce from ward 12. But then I'm in the middle of ward 13. I got one garden, no pounds of produce.
Yeah.
What happened? Whose butt do I need to kick in old Brooklyn to get that produce grown?
During the through the chair to the council, during the 2022 season, I did have someone from Old Brooklyn CDC reach out to me about starting a community garden. Unfortunately, they did not have anybody who was willing to take the lead. And for 2023, they still have not reached out about having another garden start
Okay,
there.
please reach out to me. I know exactly where you can run a great program. It looks like the one here is at the I don't know what WRH is, but this is William Rainey. Oh, William Rainey Harper, that's what WRH is. So if they don't have the staff or something, let me know. I know a great spot for you, okay?
Yeah, so thank you. Through the chair to the council, if you would mind sending them my way quickly, because we have our dig-in course, which our community gardens have to take in order to start a garden, is starting pretty soon. So it'll be nice for them to sign up
Can
now.
you email me,
Yes.
and I'll just forward it, and yep, thanks.
All right, Councilman Jones.
Do you use your nursery do you guys use the city's nursery to help with citizens who want to, put the plants out ahead of time and grow?
Council to the chair, no, we have not done that in the past. If that's an opportunity that we could pursue, we would love to collaborate, but that has not been presented to us as an option before.
Because it's really a wonderful, I haven't had a chance to personally do it myself. I'm a plant kind of guy. My father used to plant these big collard greens, and he would use cow manure. It would smell, at a certain time of the year, and he would get his soil ready. And we would have almost 3.5 feet. I mean, these collard greens were huge. And so everybody from all around would come and take a look at these collard greens because they couldn't believe these plants were so big. And we would have so much that we would have to cut it and then freeze it and eat it throughout space and time. So our house was never short of collard greens. With that being said, I think planting is really good. It's therapeutic. And if you look at people who live for a long time on the planet, one of the things that they do is in gardening. So how do you promote these programs, to keep it cultivating and stimulating? Because that's something that I think, as our chairman said earlier, about the various different activities we do, how do we get that information out there? How do the newer citizens, because once we get older, the older ones unfortunately move on, and then the younger ones don't know about and can't carry on the activity. How do we promote the program?
Through the chair to the council. So in the past, a lot of this has been word of mouth, and people have also contacted the City of Cleveland Land Bank if they were interested in starting a garden, and then from there they would contact OSU Extensions to push them to the Summer Sprout program. This year, I'm planning to do a lot more outreach, so that's whether that's doing interviews, doing case studies with some people who are kind of interested in learning more about the Summer Sprout program, and then just going to different speaking engagements where I can, get the word out about our program.
And you also help the citizens with, tell us what you do for people who want to get into the program who may be listening right now. What all do you offer and provide?
Through the chair to the council, so our program offers a number of opportunities. We give our community gardeners free seeds, free starter plants. They have the opportunity to receive soil or humus every other year. We give them informational material, so maybe there's a webinar on chickens, or maybe there's a webinar on pest control. So we offer a number of opportunities.
So you said chickens. Explain, Mr. Chairman, to the distinguished lady.
To the council, through the chair, we offer a backyard hen keeping class. This class fulfills the zoning requirements, especially for Lakewood City, but also for Cleveland and East Cleveland.
Speak into the mic.
Oh, sorry. We offer a backyard hen keeping class that fulfills zoning requirements for Cleveland, Lakewood, and East Cleveland. It teaches people about rearing hens for eggs, how to do that safely and securely in their backyards.
I agree. That's great. Mr. Chairman, thank you for the work that you do. I would like to work with you. I don't know, if I was to allocate or work with them to spread this information around, how would I do that, Mr. Chairman, to the director for Ward 1 residents in cultivating and stimulating new people to be a part of the Summer Sprout program for community gardens?
So through the chair to the council, we do have a website. We are located on our Cuyahoga County OSU Extension's website. We have a tab where you can click on Summer Sprout, where we're able to publish information about our program. And we also have a newsletter, a Summer Sprout newsletter, and then we post on social media from time to time too as well.
Through the chair, we also, within the department, we keep applications as well and information on the program. We keep that physically in-house.
Well, I would love for you to come out to my neighborhood because the proposition is that's good that people do that, but everybody don't do it, right? So that's the reason why our program is not as robust as it used to be years ago. Years ago, we used to, in just Ward 1 alone, would have about 15 gardens. And everybody wanted to be involved way back in that space and time. So my suggestion would be you guys make the rounds to community meetings, to ward community meetings or ward clubs or however the various different council members have it, to spread that you're still here. This is what you do. And second, work with the council members, because the question was specific. How can I work with you to help you stimulate, people in my neighborhood? So if that means putting a promotion on and doing a robocall and or putting a mailer out in the neighborhood and having you come and speak and talk about it and getting people to sign up, that's what you want to do. Because if you can keep people engaged and involved, I think that this here helps to bring the pressure down in the city of Cleveland in terms of helping people therapeutically with planting and gardens. I think this is so important. So if you don't mind, I'd like to get together with you. I'll give you my card, and then I'd love for you to come out and talk about the program, hopefully within the next 2 to 3 weeks.
Thank you, Councilman Jones. We will make sure that we have everyone's contact information. If you can see Mr. Titron, that he can push that out to everyone to make sure everyone has that info. All right. Councilwoman Mara.
Thank you. Just want to say I'm a big fan of Summer Sprouts. One of my high school jobs was working on a farm that sold at the Shaker Square Farmers Market. So I know those long hours under the beating sun, weeding the carrots and making sure that everything grows nicely. I have a small question, which is that years ago, like a prior iteration of Summer Sprouts, I think there was a garden in my ward that ended up not being used going forward, and there were some materials left behind. Like I think there's like a archway that's sort of teetering over. I can get you the address, but would fixing up that lot, restoring it, be something that Summer Sprout could help with? At least just picking up the old gardening materials that were left behind in the prior iteration through the chair.
Through council to the chair, typically that's not our what we do, but we
Yeah.
can assist with possibly gathering community members to assist with that.
Okay.
Because then we wouldn't have anywhere to put
You wouldn't
the
have anywhere to put it.
materials at.
Okay, all right. Maybe it'll be a collaborative effort. I think there's like some. I'll show you a picture of what I'm talking about afterwards. But there's just a lot that we can help clean up. That was a summer sprout venture that was sort of left behind. So thank you so much for what you do, and I look forward to all my delicious veggies from your program this year.
You know, if I could also respond through the chair to the councilwoman and also to the chair. All of the gardens, there have been some concerns. Many of them were not summer sprout gardens. Some of them were tied to the old reimagining days and some other things. So it may be more beneficial for you to contact us in the land bank, and we can research and find out what actually existed there prior, and then address it accordingly.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. And who in the land bank would do that research and get back to the member of council? And how long will it take to get back to the member of council?
To the chair, you can direct to either myself or Lindale Hinton, and she will research immediately. If it's a City of Cleveland lot, not necessarily land bank, I would also engage Marcia Garrett on this, and they can do the research within a week.
Sure. Thank you.
Thank you. Through the chair to the director or team, good afternoon to you all. So with the Summer Sports Program, I know you kind of laid out what happens for those that are producing food of some sorts. Are you all connected to like the larger like agricultural communities? So like there was a release that just came out where through the Department of Agriculture, the Ohio Department of Agriculture, that communities, underrepresented communities, can get grants to then kind of sell the things. Like, are you all familiar with this new announcement and understanding and connecting the Summer Sprouts Network to it? I'm not sure if that happens or not.
Yeah, through council to the chair, I think you're referring to Farm Service Agency loans.
It's the Ohio CAN program. It just came out yesterday. It was literally, well, this is why I was just found out about it yesterday, but it's just like, how are we, like, intentionally for those who are growing, fruits and vegetables connected to the larger network to be able to potentially scale up or, be able to earn a real living from that. And I just would be, and it might not be a role or whatever, but I just am trying to see, are we tapped in?
Through council to the chair, most likely will receive that information and how it might be farms or gardens, right?
Okay.
So with the Summer Sprout program, participants cannot sell their produce.
Okay.
So it would be something separate from this program, but we could definitely find out and be able to connect local farmers, most likely that's for farming, to that information and opportunity.
So that's a key point. So through the chair to the director, they would not qualify because you have to sell. So this is, okay, so this is only for like community goodness. Okay. Yeah, I mean, no,
to increase food access.
Oh, great. No, the community, because I could literally, that's what my mom used to do. Like, literally had a garden. Anybody on the street could just come and get it and all that type of stuff. So, yeah. Yes, community goodness. So, thank you.
All right. Thank you. Seeing no further questions, thank you all again. We're happy. We're looking forward to working with you all again in 2023. One question, if someone would like a hoop house, can they work with you all to get a hoop house? And what is that process?
Through the chair to the council. So that's a bit of a difficult process just because hoop houses cost a lot of money and we don't have it in our budget to purchase hoop houses. But what I could do is to connect them to grants that they could use for hoop houses or put them in contact somebody who might be willing to donate a hoop house.
Okay.
Through chair to the council, we also are partners with NRCS, who's a part of the USDA, and there's an application process for hoop houses. So they definitely have funding available for that opportunity.
Who's NRCS?
It's an acronym.
Natural Resource Conservation Service.
Okay.
So they're part of the USDA, and that is part of their role to distribute hoop houses across the state of Ohio.
Got it. And lastly, just please make sure that you see Mr. Titron so he can get out your contact information and to all the council members as well. Okay, Councilwoman Gray.
One question, Chair. to the ladies here, just to echo Councilman Harrison on the home houses. Even though that you're not part of it, could you also direct me with home houses? Some home houses have shut down, and they just are eyesore.
Yeah.
And I'm trying to figure out who we need to get to take care of that.
So,
and also, is it the city land bank that the hoop houses are?
So right as you were walking in, Mr. Green mentioned some of the gardens or houses can be on old reimagining Cleveland lots, not summer sprouts. So if you get that information to the land bank, they would do the research to see exactly is it a summer sprout or is it an old reimagining yard or a lot that folks are doing work on, and then they can provide the appropriate steps in who to contact to deal with the issue that exists on the lot that's been abandoned. All right. Thank you. All right. See no further questions. Moving on. Thank you all. We appreciate your time. All right.
Thank you.
All right. Thank you. Moving on. We're gonna move to the Cleveland Land Bank. This should be interesting.
Yeah. Exactly.
Thank you, Chairman. So we are looking at page 7-1 in our books. So before I hand it over to Commissioner Green to talk about the land bank, no. I would like to level set. Okay. So what I will say is that land bank, like many of our programs, is a program in transition. Land bank is a program that has had several challenges. Some that have been long-standing challenges, some that are new challenges. Assistant Director Wackers mentioned earlier that from a finding from our last monitoring with HUD said that the way that we have been doing land bank is ineligible. And that way is a way that we have done it through CDBG for a long time. So that means we are currently in the process of decoupling from CDBG, as well as where it is eligible to make sure that we're doing that correctly and according to compliance. So I do want to level set there. I want to let you know that I share and feel your frustration as council folks about a few things. The first of which is communication or lack thereof with you all as council people, with your residents having to follow up, the overall time and amount of energy that it takes to do those follow-ups. I completely understand your frustrations. I have spent more time than I would have liked to this year with emails back and forth for this program. As you all, and I think the whole entire city of Cleveland knows, this program has been without a manager for, I believe we're well over a year and a half at this point. Not for lack of trying. We spoke a little bit about that yesterday through a line of questions with Councilwoman Spencer. So we are actively and currently that job posting is out. We are looking for a talented individual to come in and really right this ship. We have great people working in the program, but it is a small program. We don't have not nearly enough folks as we need to. Additionally, the amount of land bank lots is just enormous. It did not get this way overnight. This happened over generations and years, over multiple administrations. And that is the system that I walked into, but that is not how I will be leaving this system. We will be making changes. We will be more responsive. We will be doing what we need to do in terms of this vacant land. Right now we have over 18,000 parcels that are officially in the Cleveland Land Bank. There are over 30,000 that we know about vacant land. They're not all owned by community development. We know that the grass is high. We know that there is illegal dumping that happens there. Fixing this is going to have to be an all hands on deck coordinated approach with, yes, community development, but also with public safety, as well as public works. We have been having, in addition to other external partners, Chairman, you and I met, and we've met a few times with Western Land Conservancy and the Food Share folks and all of these other organizations. We have been listening over the last year. I'm incredibly frustrated with where we are in this program, and my commitment to you. I actually have it in my mid-year goal to have a plan to completely revamp the process. It makes it harder to accomplish that goal when I do not have a manager, but whether I have a manager tomorrow or in 2 months, I will meet that goal, and by this summer. So by the time you all come back from break this fall, I plan to unveil how we're going to address vacant land, particularly in this case, talking about land bank land. So we are here to hear you out today, but I want you to know that your frustration has not fallen on deaf ears. I share your frustration, and by year's end, hope to be implementing a new program that we develop in the first half of the year. And so with that, Commissioner Green, I don't know if you have anything additional to add to that. Otherwise, happy to take questions. And actually, I do have one more point on that. We are also changing the structure of part of this change. You all are involved as council folks. You're involved in this process. And so as a preview, and I know Councilwoman House, you and I have talked through it, as well as with Council President, kind of piloting what it would look like if we front-loaded the process, decided what we wanted to do with the land, and then sped up once we've decided this is highest and best use. And then if somebody applies for that, then we more quickly transfer it over instead of the reactive process that is happening right now where we're waiting for applications to come through. So again, moving from reactionary, hopefully, to responsiveness, and then ultimately to being proactive. All right, and so that means in some areas where development makes sense, whether that's housing or commercial. Typically for us, it's going to be housing is what's going to be there, infill housing. Where there are blocks that have so many missing teeth, it might look like what can we do by packaging these up all together. It's going to look like partnerships that we've already started with the county land bank. To say, if we've got 3 parcels on the block and you've got 4, what can we do here to really make an impact and a difference? And so with that, Commissioner Green, if you have anything to add, please do so.
No, I think you said a mouthful. I really don't have anything to add. And I think the 3 pages here, the first 3 pages here in this Chapter 7 sort of illustrate some of what the director has said as well. There's a change in how the program can be funded. So in order to reflect to HUD on activities that we are able to do through the land bank, the first 3 pages highlight that, and they're all tied to the 10-year housing plan. The first being supporting housing infill development. And so with this proposal here, it does show 6 proposed, but it shows the actual accomplishments as well. And these are activities that we've done where we've actually funded some housing activity through our partners. And so you see an actual showing of 72 in the current grant year of housing development that has occurred on land bank lots. So that's an example of one area that can be funded and help to fund staff accordingly through CDBG. Oh, I'm sorry. Can you hear me? You can hear me now? Okay, I'm sorry. Okay. So then the second page, page 7-2, goes into neighborhood revitalization strategy areas. And those areas that have been had a level of activity through the Department of Economic Development and some through CD commercial and industrial activity. And you'll see that that's funded at $40,000 there. And then the third page, 7-3, which is tied to supportive housing initiatives. And each year there's almost always PSH property where there's a LIHTC application, and they use land bank lots to provide housing, permanent supportive housing on those lots. So these are examples of that. So that's just this is just adding then to the director's comments.
Thank you. I have a couple more points that I failed to make that I want to make sure. Our goal for the upcoming year for this program is for this program to be self-sustaining, right? A self-sustaining program that funds itself. That is going to help us to decouple from CDBG without getting into general fund budget. So that is one of the goals for what will eventually be our proposal going forward. Furthermore, there are state regulations that say that land bank lots must be sold for no less than fair market value. No less than fair market value. There are state laws, correct me if I'm wrong. Okay, thank you. There are state laws that require that land bank lots are given away for no less than fair market value.
And that's for a particular end use or what?
James.
On this point.
Mm-hmm. Hold on,
So it's for
get that out first. Go ahead.
Yeah, so it is an in use. As an example, permanent. How can I say this?
Permit.
Fair market value when it's done for development require. Fair market value when it's done for development requires an appraisal. So we have been able to stretch it when it comes to side yard expansion and determine that fair market value, but typically we are required to appraise it and then sell it for what the appraised value is.
Okay, so for clarification, through the chair, that is when we are selling the land bank lot for development, for private development, it is at that fair market value. In instances where you will not see this take place, where you will see the $200 price for lots would be for permanent affordability. All right, affordable housing, because we want to promote affordable housing, and as well as side yards. That is a benefit of the city when somebody takes over that's a side lot. So this is one of the things that we will be working through. Right now, we have a process where the person requesting is sent out to do an appraisal. We are changing that. That's one of the first things that we're doing. As we bring in professional services, one of the very first tasks, one of the top 3 tasks for them to do is to get a representative appraisal so that we can say in certain areas, here's how much, what fair market is for that area, rather than doing it to 18,000 parcels at a time. So we'll do a couple representative appraisals. Okay, these are the details that will be worked out in that plan that we'll be proposing to you. Thank you.
Are you next on the list? So I got you. Okay. No, you're good. No, I got you. Okay, thank you for the information, because that is absolutely on the tip of a lot of members' tongue, okay, to talk just about what you just mentioned in your last statements. So I'm going to start off with Councilman Harsh first, but before we get to Councilman Harsh, because I know he's going to go into the question that I have as well, that we talked about. But, the land bank staff, regardless of having a manager, in my opinion, I have not stopped receiving applications. I have not stopped receiving responses or adjudication of lots that we have requested that have been requested through an applicant from my ward. I will say that. I can't speak for anybody else, but I have not. Lindell and Anna are on top of it, right? There was a new young lady who started sending me emails, Mia. I started receiving emails from Mia. I said, okay, so they're putting somebody else in part of that process as well. But I can tell you that those two individuals, and adding on Mia, has been on top of their game, regardless of having a manager, to kind of address some of the larger issues that maybe come up dealing with land bank lots, and that's where you all have filled in to pick up that role. So I thank you for that. I'm sure they're listening, watching. Thank you, Anna and Lindell, and now Mia, who has been helpful during that process. Councilman Harsh.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Through the chair to the director, what state law says that we must sell lots at fair market value? And where did this state law come from that nobody's ever heard of before?
I'll pull up the regulation, but it is a state law. And it is... So Ohio Revised Code 5722-07, not dash, .07. And it says, an elected subdivision may, without competitive bidding, sell any land acquired by it as part of its land utilization program at such times as such persons and upon such terms and conditions and subject to the restrictions and covenants as it deems necessary or appropriate to assure the land's effective utilization. Such land shall be sold at not less than fair market value.
Yeah, so it starts off with may. So through the chair, can we have our legal staff look at ORC 5722.07?
We can.
Because we have sold an awful lot of land bank lots in this city's history to a lot of developers who did not get appraisals, did not look at fair market value. My follow-up question through the chair to the director, can we just assume that fair market value is the county auditor value?
No.
Through the chair, no, that is not, no, that is not the best measure.
Through the chair to the director, why not? They value all the property in the county every 3 years. They put it out there on the website for everybody to see. It gives everyone the same access to the same information.
It is, through the chair to the councilman, it's an assessment. It is explicitly determined to be something different than a fair market value. It is an assessed value for the purposes of taxation, not for the purposes of sale.
With all due respect to the chair, there is both the market value and the assessed tax value on the county website. Both those exist. They're in separate columns. You can look up any property. Mine's in there too.
I completely agree that that's there as a resource, but for the purpose of sale, it is not something we can use.
Okay. So through the chair, this is to the director. This is the definition of changing the goalpost in the middle of the game, right? We have hundreds of thousands of lots that have been developed in the last couple decades, and now we're changing the price and we're changing the process. Now people have to go out there and hire appraisers to appraise empty lots. It's really hard to appraise an empty lot in the city of Cleveland. It's really hard to come up with a comp on an empty lot when they've been basically transferred for a couple $100 to developers for decades. I don't understand where this came from. And through the chair to the director, you started off by saying that our past management was ineligible. Something about our past land bank there was a problem with it. Could you describe the problem that was with our previous land bank management?
Not with the manager.
Not person, but process.
Through the chair. So I'm going to back up a touch here. We have been doing it wrong for a long time. HUD in the last monitoring called us out for it. The first thing that we do when we've been doing something really wrong for a long time, we say, but we've always done it this way, and why is this a problem now? And HUD said, please don't say that you've always done it this way. We've only looked at 2 years. We would hate to go back even further. Okay? So I stopped asking questions from that point and said we need to have a different and better process. I know that developers have gotten land for $200, and I know that is the sweetest game in town. That is not appropriate. That will not help us to self-sustain this program going forward. I absolutely agree with you that getting a fair market value appraisal on a vacant lot is arduous, and that is part of the process that we are changing by bringing in those professional services and having a representative value. We will take that on. It'll be our responsibility to take that on. That should not be shared responsibility, but we are in a transition. We are still in a reactive system.
Through the chair to the director, I don't think that asking questions is ever a bad idea. In fact, I would ask us to think about this possible scenario. If developers want to, they can find empty land and start flipping it amongst themselves for $1 to create a better fair market value for themselves. I mean, if we're talking about empty land that is undeveloped and the value of empty land that is undeveloped, it has the value of the person that wants to buy it or build on it. But if somebody wants to sell an empty parcel of land for $1 to their next door neighbor, they're allowed to do that, right? That's fair. That's legal activity, and that creates comps, right? And if they can't get it for the standard price that everybody's been operating on, there are also ways to make more affordable comps available out there within the market through legal activity. So I just don't understand, like, if ORC 5722.07 says what you says it says, then I think we have to have a lot more conversations with HUD because it sounds like we have a much bigger problem on our hands. But I think it's absolutely bizarre that this is just coming up now for the first time after decades of this activity. I think there is more oversight in the state of Ohio than just this. So what were the prices paid for the empty lots sold in 2022? There's a whole list of them back here in the appendix. It's a couple hundred. I think last year we sold disposition 705 lots. What were the prices for those lots?
Through the chair, my assumption is that most of them were at the $200 mark. Is that a fair?
Through the chair,
assumption?
most of them were certainly side yards, and we continue to honor the $200.
Most of them are new single-family construction. All over.
Through the chair to the director, I can respond. The 705 that you see there are dispositions, of which 483 of those are lease and license lots. So those weren't sales. 220.
We can't hear you.
Can you hear me?
You have to talk directly.
Now you said 400 lots is
All right. I'm sorry.
Okay.
So can you hear me now?
Yeah, talk directly. Yep.
Well, this up because I'm trying to see this as well. Okay, so what I'm saying is that of those 705 lots, 483 of them were for lease and license activity. So they were not for sale. 222 lots were for sale.
Okay.
Of which 120 were side yards, so likely sold at $200 per lot.
Okay, 200 for the side lots, so that was 120 to 220. So about 100 were sold for new development, and the price on those, we can get those? We can get the price on those that were sold for new development?
Yes.
Okay. I would really appreciate that. What is the current, so Commissioner Green, when we talked last year, you were pretty clear that you were in the real estate department. That's different from the land bank. And I understood the difference because real estate usually has stuff on it and land bank is empty land. And we deal with these things separately because empty land is not the same as developed real estate. But through the chair to the director, how many staff members are currently working in the land bank department that is directorless?
Through the chair, we have 2 full-time people, and I don't know if is it support? We have several others that support not just Land Bank, but a few of the other initiatives in the area.
We have three. Through the chair to the to the councilman. We have 3, and then we have 2 supporting.
Okay, so through the chair to the director, those 3 people have my undying love and sympathy because they oversaw 1,381 acquisitions last year, and 705 lease and holds or sales or side yard transfers, and that is an inordinate amount of work. I'm looking at the city's website through the chair to the director. Land Bank manager is still not posted. I'm looking at the website. I've gone through 6 pages. Camp Forbes is in here. Law attorneys are in here. The law department's in here. Bilingual clerks are in here. I see no Land Bank manager. Chair to the director, you said it was posted.
I believed it was through the chair.
Okay. Through the chair to the director, is this HR's puts these up on the website?
We send it through a multi-level process, and yes, it gets put up there.
Through the chair then to our staff, can we find out from HR where that posting is and when they plan to put it up? Because this seems to be a major problem. I'm sorry for the pregnant pause. That's a radio term. That's what happens when you don't talk for a long time and the listeners start to think that nothing is happening down at the station. I apologize for that. I am just mortified that we are changing the process of transferring land bank lots at the table during budget, that this didn't come up, that we haven't had this discussion, that I heard about this from a developer who has got holes in the ground that he is filling with a house right now and finding out that he's got to change the amount that he's paying for the parcel because he hasn't done the paperwork yet, assuming that the world wasn't going to change on him. And it's absolutely affecting the bottom line of what they can sell this house for. In my neighborhood, by the way, which is still not a profitable sale. They're still not making money off building a house in Old Brooklyn. Sometimes people think that we're the land of milk and honey. We're still not turning a profit on this new house, and now the price of the parcel that he thought he had an agreement on is going up on him. And that, to me, is just a horrible thing to discover during budget negotiation hearings for CDBG. And I'm just really, really miffed that this is, like, happening this way. Like, this should have been a conversation we had back in committee when this decision was made that we're going to change the price of land bank lots, and we're going to, oh, and by the way, there might have been this 2-decade-long snafu with the process. I don't understand why this is happening now. And I'm sorry, it's just frustration. It's not
no, you're good. I just want to jump in there. Can you? I'm interested in a response to Councilman Harsh. Is that happening? Folks who have agreements in place currently, signed agreements, and expecting one price, and the rug has been pulled from under them. Is that happening?
Through the chair. If there was an agreement in place and there's an email that says something's in process and it was going to be $200, that I honor that.
Or whatever.
Whatever price, yes, whatever price it was. If there is actively that happening. What has happened, though, is that this is just something that's been taken for granted. This is just something that's built in. The city gives away its land. That's the process. That's always been the process. And why would it change? I can, with all due respect, I can really only address when I see that there is an error. I can only correct it so that we are not further making errors after I good and well know that we're doing things in a way that we shouldn't be.
Well, then, Mr. Chair, to the director, the prudent thing to do then would be to grandfather in all current projects that are actually holes in the ground where people have actually started progress and make this change starting going forward. But let's figure out what this change is, because I'm still not.
Right, and you just said another point. If holes are in the ground, that means there is an agreement in place and it's been understood, right?
It's honored.
Right?
Through the chair to the director.
So I want to hear that from the director and the commissioner.
Through the chair to the chair. If there is a hole in the ground, the land has already been transferred. There can't be activity
That's not,
unless the land is transferred.
I would dispute the accuracy of that statement with all due respect.
Okay, so.
I don't have site control.
All right, so.
Site control does not mean ownership.
All right, so I just wanted to flush that out because I'm hearing I understand Councilman's frustration and what he's asking, because he actually came to me and asked me, and then I called you all and said, is this the case? Because I had not heard this. that the process and the pricing of how the lots are being done was being done rather. So thank you for that, Peter.
Yeah.
Go ahead. I just wanted to add
No,
that
I
to
mean,
folks.
I'm just kind of being thrown off by this is me in a rage. So I'll just stop. Thanks.
Okay, Councilwoman House.
Yeah, so through the chair to the director, this is, okay. So this is one of those things where I would just say, again, what are we doing? Like, what are we doing when you think you have a finite amount of land? And I'm going to talk about the Ward 7 story. How could we possibly think it is right for someone to get parcels of land for $200 a pop, and then we build on that said property, which you now own, it is yours, and you have rents of like $2,100? Like, and again, to just think that this is okay, it is. And at the same time, I have places where there are vacant lots. I had a vacant lot that sold for $150,000. I was like, excuse me, but we selling for $200. Real story, real fact. Like, literally, somebody had to do a whole different project to go around this parcel, because this parcel land sold for like $150, $125. I'm going to get the appropriate number because I know the news article's looking at it, and I talk real fast. But it was a six-figure selling of a parcel of land. What could we be doing if we're actually leveraging our dollars? And again, I appreciate you bringing up the Ohio Revised Code so that we can look at it. And even further, to the chair, to Joe Titron, if you reach out to one of our state legislators, they can actually do the legislative history through the Legislative Service Commission to actually bring the legislative service to give the intent. But this is one of the things, is when we have to be in a position for people who have resources and dollars to be able to make sure that we are doing things, I would just say, decently and orderly. People are not building, for the most part, and let me say, in my neighborhood, I'll just say Ward 7. People are not just building homes not to make money. People are absolutely making money off of our land, and we're not making any money off of our land, so that we can have money to actually go into the things like homeless services, where that's not a profit-driven industry, right? When you think about some of our low-income housing, or creating real affordable housing based on those who are making $20,000 a year, most people are not doing it. So if we don't ever have the resources to do it, then we'll never be able to go into that direction. The question that I do have, this is a land bank question through the chair to the director and or the commissioner. How, and I know you said, Director, that by the middle of the year we are going to have a new plan, but I'm really concerned, I would say, about our inability to come up with a equity model when it comes to community members who are living next to lots that they have been taken care of for years, right? And it's beyond the developable lot, right? I mean, case in point, and I'll give you a real example. My mother's house on East 93rd Street. She bought the house in the 80s, been there, still to the house to this day, took care of it, got it, paid the dude on the street to clean up the lot, vacuum, I'm going to say vacuum, mow the lawn, and again, did it until she, has transitioned because of dementia and all that type of stuff. And now to this day, right now, somebody has put in a land bank application for development that the city, based on this standard, would sell for $200, right? When in reality, if there was some type of partnership, someone like my mother could have maybe had ownership of it, and maybe she could have then sold the lot for $25,000 or six figures compared to someone did it on the block over. You see what I'm saying? That can then transition into people getting the thing of generational wealth. Like, how are we using? That's what I'm. That's what my mind is, and that's where my mind goes, trying to figure out how do we change like real policy and practice to have real partnership with people who have been here through the bad times, man. Why can't Cleveland residents have a portion of equity in this land that they have put they sweat, they tears, their money into, but we just don't have policies to do it? You see what I'm saying? And I feel like that's the work that I feel like this body needs to work on, because yes, my mother, I feel like, yes, she should be right now being able to benefit off the land that was next door to her house, where somebody is about to build on this lot. They gonna be able to pay rents, $1,500 up, and it's about to be another 100 sweet things. Like, this is the type of stuff that this body should do. I don't know the answer to it, and sometimes I feel like I am a conspirator against neighbors, because just the same thing that I'm talking about up on 93rd, I had to deny somebody a land bank lot because it's like, well, you already got a lot and it's not developable, but I don't have a strategy to figure out how she could become the owner so that Clevelanders can have land. And most people are not trying to exploit the market, right? Most people just want to make sure that they have ownership because they've taken care of it. And when the good times come, they can get their fair share too. So I just don't know what does that look like? Do you know of any models that we could potentially utilize that can guide us in a true partnership with community members, where you have these shifts where people have been not denied land for years? Huh? Yeah, potentially land trust, but something in a real way that is just not done at scale today. And for far too many people, they just are not financially benefiting from it.
Through the chair, yes, absolutely. Councilwoman House, I hear you. I agree with you. That's the work. That's the very work, the equity work that we'll be doing here. I do want to mention a few things that are happening in the administration. We're involved in a process called Putting Assets to Work, PAW, and that is looking at a number of our assets, but that's one of them. We are PAW, PAW, Putting Assets to Work. It's an See, now you all are throwing me off my game. Putting assets to work, and that is led by Chief Abanama and our finance chief. And here's one thing that I have to say. So we are looking at land trust, community land trust. We are researching different ways. We are getting plugged in nationally with other land banks. We are talking to folks. We are doing the research that is going into how we're going to transform this process. But I want to be very, 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 very clear. What is right now one of our city's largest liabilities can be one of our strongest assets. In the city of Cleveland, we have land, and that land, they're not building land anymore, right? So if you go to any other city, you'll see that people are clamoring and the prices are crazy. What we have is an opportunity and control, quite frankly, over what happens with this land. So we can be strategic about it. We don't have to wait and be we don't have to wait and just react to a proposal that somebody puts forward. We can be strategic, and we must be strategic in order to make this work. How is it going to look? We're not going to be able to side yard our way out of 18,000 parcels. We're not going to be able to develop 18,000 parcels. What we're going to have to do is look at with our partners, both within the administration, our partnership with you, as well as outside partners. We're going to have to look and say, what is the highest and best use for this land? At what value? How do we get our folks to be able to profit from it? And that's how we're going to have to move forward. I don't have a different response than that. I do want to note, Assistant Director has pulled up that the land bank position is on the final step of approval, and is probably, as we speak, is probably getting unjammed right now. So I imagine very shortly here that position will be out and posted. I apologize, that was my mistake. I believed it had already gone through the levels.
I'm going to come back because I'm going to verify how much that land bank parcel was sold for. Okay. For a moment, once I check it. But you can move on.
On that point, it's fascinating that we think that it's worth more than 200, but we can't get rid of it at 200.
Thank you, Councilman. Just got to your point time. Councilman Barr.
Thank you. I just want to say I really appreciate your candor, Director, about this program, and I especially love hearing some measurable goals for the department and for everybody in terms of this is like a mid-year goal. There are moments where you want to be coming back to us with sort of next steps figured out. I know that the Putting Assets to Work program has been really productive. Is the Cleve Lot initiative also at the table for you in terms of figuring out next steps? That's what I like to hear. I really trust Tim Dem and the work that they are doing. And so, I think there's some rightful frustration. And so I will share with you my only comment is just a small marginal improvement that I have had on my land bank lots this year, and I will offer it up for any other council members who want to use it or if the department wants to use it. But my first year in office, starting in April, so about a month from now, I started getting calls to my office about land bank lots that weren't being well maintained. And the thing we kept hearing was like, Councilwoman, this has always been maintained really well, and suddenly you're in office and it's not being done. And I was like, what is going on with these lots? Because they think I'm more powerful than I am, that they think I'm personally plucking up some lot and getting it out off of the mowing list. And so we started looking into them. And the thing that we found that was consistent was the calls we were getting were from land bank lots that had recently been transferred into the land bank the prior fall from the county land bank. Because the county land bank, and everyone forgets, we have two land banks in this town. We have the county land bank and the city land bank. And the county land bank, as a rule, likes structures, and the city land bank likes lots. And so when the county land bank had a parcel with a structure on it that was demolished, or if they've been holding on to a lot for a long time, every fall, what I learned is that they go through a process where they dispose of those lots from the county and they give them over to the city. And what does that mean for residents? Well, residents don't get a notice about it. They don't know what's going on. But all of a sudden, the lot that used to be getting county level maintenance, which we know is that's good stuff. They're out there every 2 weeks, man. The county, they got the signs. The county maintains their lots every 2 weeks. Suddenly it was with the city, and we maintain our lots on a 7 to 8 week cutting cycle. And so what the residents were calling in about, it all happened to be these lots that used to get the 2 week treatment and suddenly getting the 8 week treatment. And so we spent probably 2 days worth of time in my office. We asked the county land bank, and they sent it over right away, the entire list of Ward 12 lots that had been disposed of the prior fall. And we first looked if there was like a tech option to do this, but there isn't. So you just have to manually go and find all the homes within like a tight radius of that lot. And we put them into a massive spreadsheet, and then we did a little mail merge, and we sent off hundreds of letters to people saying the lot next to your home was recently transferred from the county to the city. You're going to see a change in maintenance levels, but that is normal for what is going on. And frankly, we got a ton of positive feedback on that letter. We're doing it again this year, and it was just a communication level for people that they really appreciated. And so take that what you will. If any council members want our mail merge document, our spreadsheet, I am happy to offer it up. But while we are in this transitionary period, which I truly trust you to run with, Director, and I believe that people you have at the table, like with Cleve Lot, with Putting Assets to Work, can come up with something creative and innovative and exciting. But while we're doing that, this is like a small thing that helped us this past year, and we'll do it again this year.
Through the chair, thank you.
Thank you, Councilwoman. Councilman Joe Jones.
Let me get my composure. All right. Here's what I want to say. The law can be interpreted how you want it to interpret it. So let's start there. Section 5722-07, sale of land acquired in land reutilization. It says, as used in this section, fair market value means the appraised value of the non-productive land made with reference to such redevelopment and reutilization restrictions as may be imposed by electing subdivision as a condition of sale or as may otherwise applicable to such land. Second paragraph reads, an electing subdivision may, without competitive bidding, sell any land acquired by it as part of its land reutilization program at such time to such persons and upon such terms and conditions and subject to such restrictions and covenants as it deems necessary or appropriate to assure the land effective reutilization, except with respect to a sale by or to a county land reutilization corporation, and that's want to just put highlight there. Such land shall be sold at not less than its fair market value. However, except with respect to land held by a county land reutilization corporation, upon the approval of the legislative authorities of those taxing districts entitled to share in the proceeds from the sale thereof. The electing subdivision may either retain such land for devotion by it to the public use or sale, lease, or otherwise transfer any such land to another political subdivision for the devotion to public use by such political subdivisions for considerations less than fair market value. So what I read out of this is that the city has its own jurisdiction and in its own land reutilization program based on the law that we just talked about right here. So you can set your own prices. The only difference is if you're selling it to according to the law here that I just read, if you're selling it to another land bank entity, then it has to be subject to fair sales, or for in this case, what Mr. Wackers stated earlier about being appraised before you can sell it. So we are our own subdivision. And state law to some degree has trumped home rule. But we do have legal jurisdiction of the land within our municipal corporation. And we do have the capacity to sell it at whatever value we deem as a subdivision to sell it at. So I just wanted to set that there straight. I wish we had an attorney down at the end of the table. We always used to have an attorney. We always had the legal team in years past that would sit over in this table and handle such disputes. So we can sell it. Now, I don't care if you want to do that in other neighborhoods, but we have 18, Mr. Chairman, we have 18,000 lots. It's growing. Here's the problem that we have, Director. And when you start talking about how you put these assets to work, putting the assets to work, well, you got to first get rid of what's slowing you down. I'm putting the assets to work. Because it makes sense to me when I wanted to develop and build a house in our city, 2 lots that's side of me, and I want to put a house there. The first problem I had was with trying to get a reputable housing person to come in and build the kind of house I wanted to have. And so when I went out to try to do that and get that done, most of these housing people who develop these really nice homes on the outside of the city of Cleveland and other communities, the first thing they said to me, we don't even want to be bothered with the city of Cleveland. It's too much red tape. We just, as soon as they found out that this was Cleveland and we had to build a house here in the city of Cleveland, they're like, we're cool, we're good, we don't even want to be bothered. find another contractor. That hurt. Find another contractor. Now, I got parcels in my neighborhood, and for my colleagues who are listening, because I know one of my colleagues had to go and finance her own planning in her own neighborhood. That's what we have city planning for. City planning is supposed to be putting together and devising a plan. So when we talk about this housing plan right here, the city planning department is supposed to work with every single neighborhood and devise the kind of plan in every single neighborhood. It has been not functioning for the last 20 years. It's been derelict in its responsibility and its duties. And so when it comes to you talking about land reutilization throughout the city of Cleveland, that Department of Planning is supposed to be right here at the table. So the taxpayers are paying for a service they're not getting. So when you hear me talk about sell the land for $1, I'm talking about sell the land for $1 so that you can get homes built on those vacant lots. And we're not talking about rental. Somehow we got it twisted in this city where we're giving out all of our parcels and putting rent and causing our future generations of people in the city of Cleveland to be slaves to rent. We should have our own parcels that are homes, and people should be able to build their home, not rent a home, but build a home and live in that home, and that's their home. That's how our housing program and system should be set up. Now, that's my humble suggestion. You know, each neighborhood is different. You have a lot of work to do. So my suggestion would be, how do we bring new developers in to come in and build on these 18,000 parcels? Now, I've asked the director, now I gave her a lot of time. She's slipping in planning. She's slipping bad. Now, I've asked her and I've asked my city planner, who's been there, to give me a map of all of the vacant parcels in Ward 1. They still have yet to do it. When Mr. Brown was the planner of the city of Cleveland, I would get on the phone, I'm Joe Citizen, and ask him for a map, and he'd already printed the map out for me and already got the map to me and had it shipped to me next day. So all I'm saying to you, Director, whoever you get to run the land reutilization program here, you're going to have to make sure that he or she is working to trying to bring new developers to come into the city of Cleveland and try to get these houses built as fast as you can. That's one issue. The second issue is, by this being with HUD, is HUD now over the 18,000? This land, I mean, how does that work? How are we commingled here with block grant with these 18,000 parcels?
We have jurisdiction over them. HUD was paying into our system to subsidize it. I think is the easiest way to explain that. Mikhail, help me.
Yeah, we used it to pay for the admin to run the land bank program, and in turn the land bank sales was treated as program income into the CDBG program. HUD determined that while a land bank is eligible, the way we were operating was ineligible because their view of a land bank is a turnaround time of 24 months, and we have land that we've held for 5 decades, and found that we did not. Again, it's getting back to HUD doesn't want us to perpetually invest in a system. They want to invest in solutions.
So then the question is, with that being said, we have certain restrictions by HUD now that tells us how to run our program?
Through the
Are they saying that since you've held that lot for 50 years, you should have sold it within 24 months?
Through the chair, this goes to the conversation we had earlier. If we are going to use HUD money, we have to do it the HUD way. What I am trying to do is decouple from that process so that we can have the flexibility within state compliance, have the flexibility to do what we need to do on that land.
So how much do HUD pay us to run our program? Zero. But why are we restricted with them then? Why they got restrictions on us? How much are they giving to us for the program?
Through the chair, it is our staff cost, and our staff cost is, give me the round number.
It's around $300,000 with the current staff that we have, fully staffed. It's closer to $500,000.
All right, so you got 2 people, 3 people that are going to have to be shifted over to something else here soon. Are we going to shift them over?
Through the chair, no. No, our plan is to revisit how we are running the land bank program to either A, make it eligible where it makes sense, right? Be within that eligibility, and where it makes sense to decouple from it and go out on our own, then we will do that.
So Mr. Chairman, to the director, what cities got it in doing it right? Have we looked at cities that are really good at their reutilization program on vacant lots? And then what are those best? My thing was, if we know what cities, then let's start doing what works.
Through the chair, I believe Philadelphia is typically the city that folks look at the most. We are a bit of an anomaly in our in the volume of lots that we have. With the process that we have now with 5,000 lots, we'd be fine. But we don't have 5,000 lots.
So let me say this, Mr. Chairman, and this is where my frustration comes in. I've been trying to build houses in my ward since 2018. I got a developer that's willing to put $2.5 million down on the table. And we had another developer that went to another neighborhood, so God worked that out. So once we got the second developer to come in, he's been having the hardest time. I remember him telling me something like they don't know who he is, and he has to tell them who he is. The man that built about maybe good 3,000 to 5,000 properties throughout the city of Cleveland, and he's been building in every single neighborhood. And that was at a time when we were really moving and going and building houses. We need to have a program that is a lot more smoother, easygoing than what we have right now. I'm in year 5. There's no reason why I shouldn't have a house built in my neighborhood. And that's one of the reasons why developers don't want to develop here. And some of the developers that I know are developing down in Columbus. And they're saying to me that we don't want to do no work with Cleveland. Cleveland is difficult to work with. We're going to build our houses down where we are people wanting to work with us, wanting to see development. And so I would encourage you to even look at the model down there that they have in place, because this guy stopped building here altogether. He's now building down there. Now, the guy that I have on the table, you know him. The challenge is how fast can we get him development back into the city of Cleveland, because he's developing now all on the outskirts, and his properties are beautiful. So did you, go ahead, Director.
Thank you for that comment. I will respond by saying, I fully understand that navigating our process is not easy. I believe I stated yesterday that when processes are confusing, that is against equity. And I am for equity. So that is why we're going to make a process that makes the most sense, working with other departments, working with this body, everybody who's involved, as well as the CDCs. Right now, all of these many parts are a part of the process, and will be a part of the process of creating this something new that will come. But I maintain getting this right is going to be probably the single best thing I could do in my career. I fully believe that getting this right is going to be transformative for this city. And I look forward to going on that journey with you all.
Thank you, Director. Thank you, Councilman Jones. Councilwoman Gray, the end slide.
Yes, hey, good afternoon, everybody.
Good afternoon.
Long afternoon, so get through this. Yes, I'll get through this.
Always some of that for that sun.
I know, I know. It's all in my face. I can't help it. I can't. No, I'm good.
That's
It's
all
all
right.
in my face.
You
I
got
see
good
it,
energy.
everything. Yes, Chair to the Director, I just have a few questions pertaining to what everyone else had asked. The first question is pertaining to the development on on the partials. So you said the city has 18,000 of these land banks. Do you know how many the county has? Or are these all together in one? They all together in one?
Through the chair, no, and that's actually a really great question. So the county has separate. Go ahead.
So that's some of the information we're requesting. You know, the number of county lots in addition to the number of vacant lots in the city that's owned by the city land bank.
So, okay.
As soon as we get that number,
then we'll know how
shoot
many
it
the
out.
county has. Thank you. Thank you, Chair. So pertaining to that, going back to the city lots, we know our initial developers are Habitat for Humanity and Cleveland Housing Network partners. I work with them as well as getting them support letters to buy lots when I'm working with Commissioner Green. So I understand that setup from them. However, I know they have their particular areas in Ward 4 that they want. However, when there is a side lot to be purchased by a resident, and I'm echoing Councilman House on that as well. I discussed this. I had discussion with Commissioner Green, and they've been honest and open, and he explained to me, the format, how that worked. And I have sentiment to the resident who has been cleaning up that particular lot for years and years and years to maintain them, so they wouldn't look as bad as some of the lots have been looking all through our community. Even after Public Works come out and cut the lots every 7 weeks, they're still not attractive. But the homeowner who is taking care of those lots would prefer to buy them, but at the end of the day, some of them are denied, Chair, to the Director. Some of them are denied because these lots are now at a point of sale to an investor for the future, but no investor has actually purchased the lot. It's just a wait and sell for the investor, hoping they're going to come and buy it. Instead of for the a homeowner who want to invest in the lot to buy it as a side lot, the proper game is to wait for investor to buy it to see if they're going to buy. Because I don't know the sale that you will sell the lot for, Chair, to the Director, but to hold off on a lot to hopefully that investor buy it, I don't know, at market value or at the 200 price, and then they build on it and make a humongous profit on it, whereas the homeowner feel that they are being disrespected because they don't have that profit gain to buy the lot and to build on it, per se, just to use it as a side lot to extend their real estate on their partial and build whatever they want on it. If it's not a home. So due to what Councilman House said, that's almost like a slap in the face to the homeowner, because they are the ones that maintain it, but they are denied to purchase it and to sell it to someone who potentially might buy it and then don't buy it at all. Then you got to wait a year later to see if it's purchased, and it's never purchased. When can that homeowner purchase if you're not going to eventually sell it to an investor? So I don't know if that's an open-ended question, but that is a question somewhere in there. So,
thank you. Through the chair, I want to state that the plan that we will be developing will not be similar to the last regime, where we are waiting for a day where we believe that all of our lots are going to be buildable, right? That is not how I foresee this going forward. What we do need, and what I don't have right now, is I don't have the staff capacity with the volume of lots. I don't have the staff capacity for nuance. And that is what this process needs. It needs a little bit of nuance, right? Where we really need to push to bring in a developer proactive like your Ward 1 counterpart is doing, trying to bring in developers on certain parcels of land. Right now, what we lack is that proactivity, right? Being proactive and nuance. Right now, I have, if it's affordable, it goes for 200. If it goes for a public use that I can determine, yes, that's a public use, that goes for 200. If you're going to make money off of it, we need to get what the value is. There's a whole lot in between there. There's a whole lot of gray that I do not currently have the capacity to deal with that level of nuance, but we will get there.
Okay, all right. And my second question added on to that, I almost lost my train of thought.
Sorry.
It's okay. If it comes back to you, just let us know.
It's okay. Okay. So pertaining to that is, pertaining going back to the lots, even though that you don't have the nuance right now to answer that question, it still goes back to director to the chair to the director. It still goes back to it's just difficult explaining to a homeowner that has invested all their time and effort and their financial to take care of these lots when the city doesn't. And even though you don't have that that nuance, is it possible? Where I'm not aware of it now, but I know I had the conversation with Commissioner Green last year when I sat with him so many times, and I appreciate all the information that he have taught me to educate me along the line how this process worked. And at that time, he said that he was looking for internal intake specialist, because that position need to be filled. And he said if that position wasn't going to be filled internally, it's going to go externally. And that was some of the process of the hell of getting these applications out into the system so they can be processed so people can purchase these side lots. So I want to know, I just want to know, do you have internal employees in your department that you can transfer into these positions instead of waiting for someone to be hired external per se? And if you can hire internal so we can get that process moving forward so some of these homeowners can be looked at sooner than later instead of them being held off on an investor buying up the lot and the application is sitting there on the table or in the system because it's pending, and then they get cut out from getting the lots per se, directed to chair to director?
I absolutely hear you through the chair. What I will say is you hit on something that is really important about this process. Not only I have talked today about lack of capacity. I have talked today about the process and the many partners that are a part of it. I have talked about the volume of lots that we have. What I did not talk about, but is a huge factor, is that we are on a paper process. So paper can disappear. Paper can get left on somebody's desk. When you have this many pieces and parts and physical paper being passed to 4 different entities, things do get lost in the shuffle. So one of the things that will be absolutely necessary is going away from that paper process into a more automated process, and we are setting the framework to do that now. The other thing I wanted to note is I've known that this was an issue for a while, and those process flows that I talked about yesterday, this is one that we've spent many hours, not just within the department, but because there's so many other partners that have different pieces of this, we have talked to them as well.
Okay. All right. So the chair to the director, does that mean that if you have internal employees in your department right now that's willing to that's willing and has the expertise to be put in that position with the new process that you are creating. Are they able to be interviewed to be put in that position instead of waiting for external interview per se?
Through the chair, thank you for getting me back on track to answer the question that you asked.
You're welcome.
There are currently no internal candidates right now that we are looking at, that we don't have additional capacity in other programs to be able to move into this program.
Okay.
What I'm hoping is that we can, at the same time as we are changing our process, we can add folks into that process, and that we can make that process more efficient and automated by moving it from that paper system. The other thing that is unacceptable is communication. I might not be able to start. I might not be able to get us off of paper next week, but what we can do is commit to letting folks know where they are in the queue. That will be made much easier when we change our process. But that being able to communicate what's going on and manage expectations is huge. That is something that we've been really working on. While we did not hire a new person internally, we did promote somebody. So Lindale, who has been working with us for a while, did get elevated, and she has been extremely responsive whenever I'm getting a request from you all.
Okay, thank you. And my next question is,
You on your last 2 minutes, Councilwoman.
okay, all right, let me get there. Thank you. This is not normal for me to ask a lot of questions. I usually be in and out.
I'll
but
let you
I
roll.
know. All right, I know. But my next
I
question.
gave you a few additional. Go ahead.
Okay, thank you. But my next question is, when a homeowner, chair to director, normally homeowners get the lots as a side lot. And they have various things that they have to put on that lot before they approve, because it goes through the system. Say if a homeowner, I know homeowners call and ask to speak to the county because they want to buy the lot as a real estate lot. Can homeowners buy a city lot as a real estate investment and then build on it per se, as to a side lot and build a house on it? Is there a difference to that process?
Through the chair to the councilwoman, building on a lot makes it an application for development. So it's not then a side yard expansion, but it's an application for development. But yes, the homeowner can apply for it.
Okay. All right. And my last question is, when going back to Habitat for Humanity and Cleveland Housing Network Partners, they buy a surplus of lots. And when they do that, and they're going to build on them, they're going to build their property on and new homes on it. And when they do that, when they come into our community to do that, will the homeowner who has not able to invest into property such as, is there an extension program for that homeowner to get a grant or a development funding other than what is offered for grant programs from your department to upgrade their home at the same time, because the grants that are offered, like Cleveland Housing Solutions, Cleveland Housing Network Partners, Energy Server Grant, or the AIDS Vaccine Grant, those are grants that does so much of rehabbing, as we already discussed all week. But per se, when that homeowner lose out from building the house that they would love to build, and these investors, not only Habitat and Cleveland Housing Network Partners, but if these lots are sold to other investors, will that homeowner also get another type of grant to rehab their home or renovate their home as well?
Or just to be a little bit more direct, community benefit for that resident, and maybe in a home repair type benefit or another type benefit. even if it's not just a grant to them, but some sort of community benefit. If someone that as the councilwoman narrated, is coming to buy up a surplus of lots on the street or a neighborhood, what type of community benefit is there for that resident? And is that in place now, or is that something also the new CBA is looking at addressing?
So again, I think that this is an all and answer to the chair and councilwoman. I know when Habitat comes in, they typically do bring some grants with them for other homeowners, and I believe they call it the spruce up.
Yes.
Spruce up.
Yes, they do.
Okay, so
Yes,
I know that is something that
Yes,
Habitat
they do.
does. That they are great partners when they come into a community. They want to make sure that everybody in that neighborhood is benefiting, not just the folks who will be the end user at that house. So when we support them through our through our funding, and of course with them we get as folks from Habitat would say, day one home ownership. Where there can be equity. So what I'm saying is that they're great partners, not only just to the folks who will be living in the homes, but also to the neighbors. And I just want to remind us of the conversation we had yesterday with Model Block. And the kind of idea, the theory behind Model Block, and the idea that when we're putting investment in somewhere, that we are making sure that we're if we put up a big shiny thing, right, we're making sure that those around it get to participate as a part of that, and that's part of the equity work as well. So I hope that answers your question.
It did. And thank you, Chair, because that happened to on my street many years ago. Habitat for Humanity, he came and bought 2 homes, and we signed up. I'm a homeowner too. We were able to sign up to get repairs done on our homes and also in our yard as gardening. Awesome. And I was part of that. Thank you for reminding me that. And my last and final question: since the city and Mayor White had announced it last year in October, and they have sent all the inspectors out through the entire 17 wards, because they're inspecting 117,000 homes for repair or for renovation or rehab. Is is your department part of that as well? Because a lot of the residents have been told by those inspectors to refer to their council person with future information from the program that they're walking the community for the repairs that's coming, and they need to talk to their council person to know when that next move. I done had so many calls from my resident homeowners, or even business people have called me and said, well, they said for us to refer to our council person, because when this project is over, they're supposed to be getting some type of incentive letter. Either you're going to have a grant or a loan to help renovate the home. So I just want to know, is your department part of that? But they pulling us in because they don't have the final answer. They just have a statement to say, refer to your council person, and this is what they were told for the residents to refer to us.
Sure. So let me say that the survey they're doing is not going to generate a letter to every homeowner to say what type of rehab program or service that's available to you. Right. However, if they are talking to an inspector or whoever is reviewing their home, they may engage in a conversation and say, hey, you may want to reach out, you may want to look at this program as a source of information while they are on the site. And I'll let the director respond about her department, but HHI individuals who work within the communities are housed out of community development, which is the community development's role in helping to assist with the housing surveys throughout the city of Cleveland. All right. All right. Thank you, Councilwoman. Okay. Thank you, Director. Councilman Slife is going to close us out.
All right. And I'd like an extra 25 minutes if possible. Oh man. I want to go back first to when we were talking about the land bank program no longer being deemed to be HUD eligible. And I believe the assistant director said it was 18 to 24 months that, anything beyond that was not within strategy. Chair, if you'll permit me for a moment of sarcasm, I know I don't usually do this, but you know, I lived in the D.C. area for 2 years, unfortunately, and just met many highly paid, very educated federal government administrators living in the nation's most highly educated and most affluent metropolitan area. And I'm just wondering, kind of at a larger level, so obviously HUD comes to us and says things, you know, aren't eligible or are eligible, but to what degree does the city ever sort of push back on federal guidelines and maybe offer up an opportunity to kind of educate the federal government on the wider federal apparatus? Because it just seems that sometimes Philadelphia is a cool city. My wife's from Philly. We love to go. But like Philly and Cleveland, to me, have completely different situations going on the ground. And it troubles me that there's just, in this land bank example, but in any example, you know, just a broadly applicable rule that doesn't accommodate the fact that Cleveland has in many ways been like structurally put into this position, and the federal government's been involved in that as well. And how are we educating the federal government so that we're not seemingly constantly on the negative end of regulations? We have regulations that are trying to accommodate housing and urban development in a city like ours.
Thank you for that question. Through the chair, that's a lot to unpack, but we push back. We do push back, but we don't push back in ways that will end up with us hurt even more. And so we use our professional judgment with how much to push back. I think you're absolutely right. There's certainly some room for education, but here's the reality. The reality is that, can we be doing this better? Can we be doing this more strategically? The answer is yes. So my energy has been, I will take the slap on the wrist, and I will make sure that we do it better going forward. And by us doing it better going forward is going to help our community not just satisfy HUD, and that's why I'm doing it. But let's not maybe tell HUD that right now.
Sure. You know, and I previously worked is kind of in the land bank. You know, I used to go around and figure out the state forfeiture properties and recommend which ones to bring in to make sure we weren't bringing in properties that had structural issues that were never going to be able to be sold, that had a property or a structure on them. So I like to think that I've been up and down just about every street in the city. Mm-hmm. It just strikes me that if someone from Washington, D.C. with a liberal arts degree from an East Coast college wants to know why land can't be built on 2 years in the city of Cleveland, like, to me that sounds like that's an opportunity to get them out of the district and kind of let them see the lay of the land in Cleveland and what's going on. So to the degree that we can help you with that education, I'd love to partner in that, because I don't want HUD to be adversely affecting what is our trajectory towards important work, but decades-long work. Okay, a couple quick questions. Rant over. Just remind me, when we have sold land bank land in the past, whether it's for $200 or the market value, where does that money go into the general fund?
Oh, thank you, Director Wackers Assistant Director Wackers is right on time. So. Yeah, I don't know.
With I guess the second half of the question being, when land bank properties are sold, where does the money go? And if we are moving towards not selling at $200 to the level we have, is that going to create a revenue stream for the land bank office or some other thing? Like, do we have a plan for this money, not just a philosophical disagreement on which should we be selling with, but like a plan for the revenue?
Thank you for that. Yes. So through the chair, it does go into program income, or it had been going into program income. And Nikhil's going to add on to that.
So, yes. So the first and foreseeable future, it will be retained because it is established that it's a proceed from the land bank program. It goes back to the land bank program. Currently, the revenue does not cover the expenses, so it's entirely used up by the land bank program. Once you start sort of generating a surplus of cash, and that's not really it can be used to maintain and the overall asset, the management, the maintenance, whatever might happen. And then there's under state law, there's even sort of a waterfall of that, potentially could be used to capture back taxes that might have been cause of the land to come into the land bank. But it would take a long time and a lot of sales for it actually to come in, have enough of a revenue stream to eventually come to the general fund.
And through the chair, we are working on that, and so we've already kind of previewed some conversations with finance about we need this to go directly into to go into the program that it came
into
from.
the land bank program.
Into the land bank program, not just into general. So we have started to have those discussions.
Gotcha. Because they are a small but mighty office, and when you say that there's paper, who is their paper? I to the chair, I do. So my historically, which is not too long for me, but long enough, I guess, an appraisal has always been held up as sort of the gold standard for determining fair market value. But I know that even in the previous administration, there were some disagreements on, is an appraisal the sole way to determine fair market value? So I share my colleagues' kind of questions in that general realm and would like to know, if, whether it's an auction or just to Councilman Harsh's example, like me and Chris Harsh decide we're going to exchange property for $10 and we privately negotiate that, like that is a fair market value in and of itself. So I share the request for our law department to kind of unravel that part of ORC for us and explain to us how fair market value can be determined, because what I don't want to do is create a burden that is going to slow our pipeline of properties being built, which I guess I will say one of the things that I am kind of struggling with, what might be a disconnect, at least for me, is a lot of our affordable housing in Cleveland is not quality. It's affordable because of deferred maintenance. So there is a need in the community for renovated and new properties so people can live in housing that they deserve. But we also seem to hate whenever a developer makes any money. And I don't think developers need to be making astronomical amounts of money, but I think there is a reality that if we want developers to be able to deliver a product that is going to be affordable for Clevelanders, not affordable of 1/3 of your income or however we determine affordability officially, but what we believe will be affordable. Developers aren't going to do it if they're not going to make money off it. They're not doing this to be charitable. There's so what I don't want to do is overplay our hand and make it less attractive by us effectively subsidizing projects less by not selling at a reduced value or adjusted value. Are we undercutting our own effort to deliver a product on the back end that pencils out for the target market?
And through the chair, I will just say some of the changes, and not every lot is like this, but it looks like $200 to $2,000. And when you look at the larger scheme of the projects, I know things are very tight and gaps are there, and so yes, that $2,000 could hurt a little bit, but I think in most circumstances, as long as folks are able to make money, and we have plenty of initiatives throughout the city to help subsidize in other ways, and we will continue to have those programs. But we also have to think of everybody, not just those developers. And I am okay with asking the developers to put a little bit more in when they're getting major benefits from the land.
my final comment, and honestly, to Councilman House, I really appreciated what you had said earlier about your mother's experience, because when I was working with the land bank, I sat in those meetings, and I remember people saying, well, like so-and-so wants this side yard, but it's a developable area, which is a developable area devised on not the market, but on like spatial, like it's near a main street and it's near a park. So like if something magical happens in the next 10 years, like this will be a highly prized piece of property. And I was always of the opinion, why not just, it's not a major amount of money. It's probably like $40 a year annual in property taxes we get if we actually sell the land to someone. But how do we rid ourselves of this excess property and allow the individual residents to benefit from the sale and not the city of Cleveland potentially at some point down the road? So I'm glad that we're moving in that direction. I simultaneously appreciate your point, Director, about we don't want to, give away the farm, and where there's areas where we have contiguous land bank properties or properties that are nearly contiguous, and through some assemblage we could do something larger and bigger, that we shouldn't lose that opportunity. But I have experienced many, many times in the past where, committed long-term residents were denied a side yard when it was effectively already their yard, and being told by kind of a combination of CD and planning that it was because of this grander in the clouds planning purpose that didn't really align with reality. So I hope as we move forward and the analysis of the 18,000 properties is done, that we can give a little more appreciation to our residents, and whether that's deeding it over to them or saying if you agree to do some sort of maintenance, then like there's some larger land trust, and every time we do sell something at fair market value, everybody in this land trust that's in it helping us gets like whatever small dividend check. Like, what can we do to actually use these to start to create that generational wealth? Because I just, it's not lost on me that, things worked out in my life. I was born into a good spot, and I had nothing to do with it. But we sold my grandparents' house, and that helped pay for a lot of my college. That's how it works. Like that's what we're trying to create, and we need to create the opportunity so individuals can join in on that and not be like sitting on properties for decades upon decades in the hopes that something will happen so that some minuscule positive impact to our budget can happen. I think it's self-serving and it's myopic. So I heard you loud and clear, and I agree, and I hope that we can really push this administration on that.
I know he's tired of me. I'm sorry, Chair. But I want to bring up, because this thing is like, seriously, when you asked about that, I said, let me look at when did my mother buy this house. She bought the house in 1985. This property is selling is 2022. So I did the math. It's 37 years. Really now, for real, but she really probably took care of it for 30 years. Before her dementia and going into assisted living. 30 years. And literally, it ain't right. It would be nice if we could have sold this land to help with our dementia care. That's what, people not asking for a lot. But we just have not taken time to invest in our people the way we need to. And we have to. Thank you.
You got it, Councilwoman. Councilman Slife, you done? Good. Okay. Thank you, Councilman Slife. Just a question. Who set the policy? Was that through ordinance or department decision on the disposition of these land bank lots? Who came up with that? Was that by ordinance, or how was that developed when given city planning or the department, the power to just deny the application without consulting the council person or saying that, this lot cannot be used for this particular purpose?
Mr. Chairman.
Yes, Councilman.
That process is set out in an ordinance.
Set in an ordinance?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
That we wrote.
That council wrote. Well, obviously long before us.
Yes, before us, but it is set out in ordinance.
Okay. Is that, Mr. Wackers, is that your understanding, the department's understanding, that is through ordinance, how that process?
So I'm not going to debate that, but that there is an ordinance that dictates how we dispose of the land. I think what is problematic is over time, there's been adoption of various procedures that probably have not been in the best interest. And I think what
By the
director, by the department, planning, administration, the CDC, maybe even the councilman, because I have 17 different sort of approaches. Sometimes that really cause confusion. I think what the director is trying to do is really take fresh eyes at it and create something that is rational and in the interest of the city as a whole, not in the interest of a particular stakeholder, but in the residents of the city of Cleveland.
Okay. So I think that's something we need to review, because that's constantly coming up, and how the process, because if, city planning and CD should not trump the council person's decision or the neighborhood's want, for that land bank lot in that community. It just should not happen, right? It needs to be a more level plan, a more level feel in terms of discretion, and engagement and determination on what happens with that lot. So my next question is the Land Bank Adjudication Committee, the Disposition Committee, whatever you call it. Who did that ordinance also create that Disposition Committee, or how was that Disposition Committee created, and by who? Assistant Director, Commissioner?
It was not organized or established formally by the ordinance. I think what it did is sort of the framework by which we implemented the ordinance in order to feed in the council input, feed in the CDC and community input, as well as planning's input. Because what we are seeing, even though you say that planning should not dictate the sale, planning would dictate the review of permits down the line. So what we wanted to do is make sure that if we were going to have a sale, that we weren't down the line setting up the applicant for failure by not being able to get the permits necessary in order to pursue their development. Again, these are all sort of the after-the-fact things that we've had to do over the years. We're trying to act as a solution that I think created more complexity that should have been revisited with the council.
That's right.
To create a system that is more proactive and not reactive.
Right. Well, good. I'm glad to hear those comments. And so So what I'm going to do, I'm going to see a few members on this committee who wants to take up that initiative and work with the department. I have enough initiatives on my plate to take up, so I'll gladly hand it off to someone else to work with the department to figure that out. So, Mr. Titron, can you get that ordinance for us it's on its way? Okay, Councilman. That we get that ordinance so we can review that. And we may have to formalize through ordinance what that Land Bank Disposition Committee is. We may need to, depending on the discussion, we may need to formalize through ordinance some of these policies and procedures because, oftentimes, even I've experienced in the past, the Disposition Committee don't want to transfer the lot. We want to see this. We want to see that happen. And I believe that council has only one representative on that committee. Mr. Titron, is that you? Who's on that committee?
Is there any?
That's administrative, but I thought council had some sort of representation on that Land Bank Disposition Committee.
There wasn't one.
No, you have your opinion or approval essentially acts as a veto. So if you approve it, then we'll consider it. If it's not approved, then we won't consider it within the 45-day window or something. Again, this is a broken process.
And we do not even believe that 45 minutes. It'd be 2 years. Something
Yeah.
Okay.
Sure.
So, again, that's why.
It's a broken process.
And I would like to also hopefully suggest, as you indulge me, the process as it stands now, we're almost evaluating less the proposal, or we're almost evaluating the applicant. And that's really causes, I get a lot of times with various parties who want to weigh in, they say, well, the applicant, I don't trust them. We can't review potential projects based on that. It needs to be based on the interest of the city as a whole. And ideally, I think what we need to do is more of a pre-agreement on what this land bank lot can be used for before we even put it out there. And it be in the interest of, I think council, you can then go around and also tout, the city administration and the council are in lockstep. This can be a side yard or this could be a major development.
Right. I get you exactly. We need to I agree, because some of these lots, in that way, that there is those instances where if planning or someone else says, well, we think this lot is better used for, there's a higher and better use for this lot, there can be something is outlined to say maybe what those uses are. However, council has the legislative authority to change the zoning of any particular parcel. So what may not be okay today very well can be in the next 30 days, right? So even with planning's decision, council has the authority to override planning decision with 2/3 of the vote as well by charter. So again, we have to dig into this a little bit deeper because there's no absolute authority either way, when it comes to certain decisions. So, again, I'm not going to go down too far down this rabbit hole, but we're going to get some members from this committee or this council who's going to work with you all to kind of figure this process out because it has to change. Just like I know that at times City Hall has went out and given a preliminary approval or support and have went out and asked people to look at these lots to do things with. We have given, I know in Councilman Starr's ward, which he's just shared this with me recently, where someone has made a commitment to offer 200 plus parcels on Opportunity Corridor to a developer with no conversation with the councilman. That's horrible. I don't know if it came from your department or where it came from, but that's a problem, right? You get out in front of the neighborhood and the council person offering these lots to individuals who come knock at the door and say, hey, I want these 200 lots, or I want these 100 lots, or can you give me these 50 lots without any sort of discussion? You can't arbitrarily do that, right? I mean, you got to engage, and again, not saying you all are doing this, but there has to be a more defined process on how this is happening. As you said, over the years, where just like you mentioned, we should have been done this and reviewed the process and procedures as we deal with these land bank lots. So with that being said, I'm gonna leave it alone there, and so we'll work together to work through that process. Okay, and within that, I know there's I don't know if this is a department policy where one land bank lot can be transferred for side yard. Sometimes you have a homeowner that has a beautiful home. They have the lot. Maybe they purchase a very small lot because sometimes you have a very narrow lot on side of a larger lot, where we have only the city has only allowed for transferring of one land bank lot at a time, and they cannot buy a second land bank lot unless they are going to build a house on it or build something on it. I'm assuming that's also an internal policy that the department has created. Commissioner?
To the chair. It is policy. However, we do look at each application as it stands. And I believe we had one in Councilwoman Morrow's ward where we actually had denied it at first, and then we looked at it again and we agreed to the sale. So we can look at it. We still look at each application individually. And to your earlier point, even when we sell a parcel, it can't be sold until it goes through Board of Control, which establishes the price. And with that, we need the council person sign off on it before we're able to send it through Board of Control.
Sure. Thank you. All right, we'll stop there. Thank you, everyone. Land Bank, appreciate your time. We're going to move on to Storefront Renovation Program.
Thank you. Can we get a page number?
Yes.
8-1. And Commissioner Green is going to start us off, and I believe we're inviting up Terry.
She's already here.
Okay.
Thank you. The Storefront Renovation Program is managed by Terry Sandy, who is joining us at the table. The program itself is designed as a program to address Main Street retail. The work they do is to try to create and enhance these walkable communities. It's a signage and a building renovation program. And I'll pass it over to Terry to go ahead and start us off.
All right. Terry Sandy, thank you for the booklet again as well. Love to see the photos.
Thank you. To the chair and the council, I'm Terry Sandy. I'm the manager of the city's Storefront Renovation Program. You're looking at the project sampler book from 2022. It has a photograph of every single project that we completed in calendar year 2022. We completed 34 projects, and we're very proud of that. Our goal is 35. In a time where construction costs are so much higher, labor is higher because of prevailing wage requirements, materials are higher, we are very proud of the projects that went forward last year and the 27 projects we currently have under construction. The program's primary goal is to help building owners do comprehensive exterior renovation of their properties. We do properties that have tenants. We do properties that are vacant buildings, as long as we can meet a HUD national objective that in a vacant building situation, that census tract is in a slum and blighted census tract. We do sometimes look at spot slum and blight. It's much more difficult to use spot slum and blight. If we were to use spot slum and blight, then we are looking at the rebate assistance going only for things that we can determine to be code violations. They don't have to be cited, but we need to be able to cite a code. We have a whole list that we could use. But then we still want a comprehensive renovation. So in those situations, a building owner would be asked to do other things to the building that don't get the rebate to get the comprehensive look, but then only rebate on the items that are actually code violations. Again, we've only tried that a couple times. It's been difficult. What we do have, though, besides our regular rebate, which is a 50% up to $50,000 rebate for comprehensive renovations, is last year we also put in place in middle neighborhoods and opportunity neighborhoods what we call the Step 1 rebate. That is a 50% rebate up to $15,000. The goal there is we know that everybody can't afford to do a comprehensive renovation at one time. In the middle neighborhoods and the opportunity neighborhoods, we then would work with that building owner to do essentially what we call a slice of the building in a comprehensive manner, and hopefully in a way that table sets that building owner could come back at a future date and finish the building through the program. We have not had many projects do the Step 1. We talk to people. That program does require a minimum investment of $10,000. So that's because to do anything that's going to make any kind of meaningful impact, we have to know that building owner can at least invest $10,000. And then the design challenge is, if that's all that building owner has, what can we do with it that not only leaves a positive visual impact, but also doesn't leave any apparent exterior code violations. So it's a bit challenging. In our rebate structure, we have an architectural rebate of 100% up to $5,000. If the property would require a phase 1 environmental assessment, if our compliance folks would come back to us when we first get a lead and say that there's something on the site that is of concern, then our department will pay for the phase 1. If a phase 2 would be needed or mitigation, we would not pay for those, but a phase 2 in that situation would receive a rebate at the end of the project if it successfully completes the program of 100% up to $5,000. We also have our sign-only program. In that situation, it's either a building we already renovated at any time in our 35 years of doing projects and has been still maintained and doesn't need any other work. If it needs some work, then we ask that building owner to fix the building up. It's usually peeling paint or something like that. And then that tenant can apply as an applicant for our sign-only program. That is a 50% rebate up to $5,000. In 2023, like many other people here, I've lost staff. Last year, for a short 10-month time, I actually had 3 designers on staff. and myself. And in 2022, we lost two designers. So it is now me and Tim Barrett, my pulled him back out of retirement 3-day-a-week designer, and we are running the whole program citywide. We advertised late last fall for specifically design specialist skills, and did not find people in that first group of people that met our criteria. We advertised again early this year, and we are going through a review process of those candidates. And we have the support of the director that if we don't find someone with the design skills, and we're not just talking about design, we're talking about understanding historic preservation and 19th and 20th century architecture and what to do with it, and construction techniques. It's a lot of skill sets in one person. But if we don't find somebody in this second round, then we are going to completely rewrite the job description to really focus heavily on explaining what we're looking for, because so many of our applicants are really skilled on the administrative side of things, but not on the design side. And the reason we know that is because there's a design assignment as part of our screening process. And we, for the people that we decide show some aptitude for what we're looking for, we send them a picture of a building and give them a Photoshop assignment to see what skill set they have. So we are trying to make a good decision so that we can hit the ground running with new staff, and so that we also build a succession plan for the program. I want to also just mention, I heard some of the conversation this morning about the CDCs and the storefront program. Currently, the role of the storefront of the CDCs and the storefront program over the years had been reduced to understanding what an eligible building type is, how to market the program. We provide marketing materials such as this book and brochures to the CDCs, and then they would go out and try to find people interested in the program and help them through the application process. Quite honestly, many of the CDCs aren't sending us any applications anymore. Almost all of the applications and the leads come in directly to me. But we did just hold a training for CDCs last week. We put out an email a few weeks ago and asked if any CDCs would like what we were calling SRP Basic Training 101, and that was about eligibility and how to market the program, and then what the process was in the program if they would want to be involved in steps all the way through, because we found when the CDCs do show an interest in being involved in the entire process, those projects tend to be more successful in the program because they have people that are right there in the neighborhood checking on them. We do have 2 consultants. Laura Balla is a part-time consultant that we assign for extra hand-holding when we think an applicant needs it, but she's a very part-time consultant. Our other consultant is Courtney Zimmerman. She is responsible for helping every single project under construction, when they are finished, to put their documentation together to request the rebate. When she gets that documentation, she prepares their rebate request package for them. She prepares it until it meets her standard and our standards, that it could pass a HUD audit, so that every single person that completes their project is never denied their rebate based on documentation. That's what Courtney does for us. I wanted to just mention again about that training we held last week, which unfortunately I couldn't go to. We actually had 11 attendees of almost all new people, and some people that have been on the job a little bit. So we had people from Burton Belcar, Union Miles, 2 people from Old Brooklyn, 2 people from Midtown, Slavic Village, Metro West, 2 people from Famicos, and 1 person from Bel Air Puritas. And I heard from Tim, he was there, Laura conducted the training, that they were very enthusiastic about the program and lively discussion and questions. So we are happy about that, and we plan to have more trainings since the CDCs are showing a big interest in the program, because again, we know when they are involved, our projects tend to succeed. In the appendix section of the book, you will see lots of spreadsheets. You'll see all the stats from the 2022 completed projects. Then you'll see a list of all those projects that completed in 2022, which again are the same ones you're looking at in your book. Then you'll see a list of projects under construction as of 12/31/22, which, if you like, through the chair, I have updated that list in a more easy-to-read format of everyone that's under construction as of 3/1/23. So I can leave that with you if you would like those.
Please do. Leave it with Mr. Teicher.
Then you will also see a spreadsheet that just shows you the funding commitments we made in 2022 in terms of building rebates versus sign-only rebates. We use the kiosk funds that we receive from the royalties for our sign-only program.
What was that for? Kiosk?
Kiosk, yes. Then we have a spreadsheet of, as of 1/13/23, projects that were in the pipeline. That doesn't mean necessarily that they are active projects. Our applicants very much drive the bus on storefront projects. Once we get an application and we start sending out federal compliance forms, our designer starts working on design concepts. It is an interactive process that actually it requires our applicants to be responsive. If they are not responsive, at this time, we don't have the staff to always follow up with everyone who isn't responsive. So we're looking forward to having more staff, and again, having those CDCs get more involved with us to keep people responsive. Thank you.
All right. Thank you, Terry Sandy, for the good information that you always bring to us. Thank you for the booklet again. Every year we always look forward to looking at the booklet and pictures and see what individuals are doing all across the city. A lot of folks, I know a couple in my ward in particular, the Clean Slate Laundry and others, the CDC has showed them pictures of what others were doing that gave them inspiration about what they can do as well. And then you all came in and really helped them, and they took advantage of the reduced program that allowed them
Step one
program that allowed them to get some signage, do some window cappings and some doors and other things that really, that alone just transformed the entire block because they were trying to rehab an entire abandoned building that had been vacant for a very long time, and so that really helped them out. The STEP program has worked out. The rebate info is in the back. I was going to ask for that, but it's in the appendix, so that information, because sometimes council members also, it just kind of, hey, well, Councilman, can you tell, how much do I get back? How much is the program? So for us to have that information in addition to the CDCs is good, so that way if somebody pulls up and asks us, we can be able to answer that question for them. So thank you for providing that information. If you can briefly talk about, before we get to the committee, some of the challenges in the adjustments HUD has made that has maybe made it a little more difficult for individuals to qualify and actually be a part of the program. Because one of the things we hear a lot, well, we don't have applicants, nobody will apply. Well, we know that there's some changes that have been made, at the federal level that has, tightened the ability to qualify, such as phase one studies, and you can't be used for religious facilities, which has always been there. Even if there's a storefront and a church occupies one of three storefronts, so you can only get 2/3 of the storefront done. Can you just kind of highlight or provide an overview of some of those challenges that has made it difficult over the years for the program to really bring in applicants and transform more storefronts like we would like to see?
Yes, to the chair, and the program, I'm going to hire you. Yes, so a number of the HUD compliance directives that we have gotten a little stricter over the years. The phase one, which got stricter in 2020, at first required that every single commercial building application have a phase one. We lost 13 projects that year. We were, though, through the assistance of Assistant Director Wackers and our compliance folks able to come up with a different approach to how a Phase 1 could be directed on a building, and ran it by HUD, and they agreed that their approach was a little too heavy-handed. And so the way the Phase 1 works now is that when we first get a lead, we send that address over to our environmental review compliance folks. They look up to see if that building is flagged as any kind of hazardous site. If it is, then we know that our department is going to pay for a Phase 1 for that applicant so that they don't have this $2,500 or whatever cost before they've even decided if the storefront program's a right fit for them. So that is one way we've solved that. If that building doesn't come up flagged as anything, then our only requirement from HUD is that our scope of work does not include any ground disturbing activity. So things that we used to do, like sidewalk repairs or fencing installations, anything where we'd have to dig a hole in the ground, we can't do now. So that has limited what people can use the rebate for, and especially in things like restaurants where they want to put patio fencing in, you're digging, into the cement.
Because of the Native American, also like the tribal groups?
If it's been flagged. If it's been flagged.
No. If it's not flagged at all, we still can't include any of those ground disturbing activities in the scope of work that would have been very normal for us to do. Site improvements, fencing, patios for restaurants, right? Those are things that now we're not allowed to include. So the rebate then, the program becomes more restrictive because of that requirement. That being said, we still have plenty to do on buildings, as you see in the book. So it's just those are things we just can't include. Besides the Phase 1, one of the things I do when I first get a lead is I have an entire list of things that are HUD requirements to make sure that this building, if it's a building type that's eligible, which is basically a traditional storefront building with display windows, right? I'm making sure that it's not located in a flood zone. I'm making sure that I can meet a HUD national objective of either that business or businesses that are there can serve a low to moderate income population of over 51%.
Can you speak louder, please, Mr.
Sure.
Chairman, into the mic? Thank you.
So I'm looking at the national objective, and if there are businesses in the building, we are always going to try to meet a low to moderate income national objective. So we have a methodology that we put together as a section in 2017 that Assistant Director Wackers was part of, so that we look at the businesses, and we have, based on the type of business, come up with assumptions that they would have a customer radius of either 2 miles, 3 miles, or 5 miles. So in a building, say a full-service restaurant, we would assume a 5-mile radius because people will travel to go to a great restaurant, right? If we can't meet the low to moderate income objective, then I look to see if that building is located in a census tract that has been deemed slum and blighted by our citywide survey. If it has, then I'm going to use a slum and blight objective. That's what I'm also using, as I said before, if I have a vacant building because I have no businesses to base a clientele on. So we try to make the national objective one of those two ways. I have had situations, though, where I have a vacant building. This would be true in Old Brooklyn, for example, a lot of times. I can't meet a national objective because it's not a slum and blighted census tract. And so what I have to tell that person is, if you can line up a business to be your tenant, come back. And then let me run it again to make sure I can meet a low mod objective. So that's another thing I do right at the beginning. We make sure property taxes are current. You can be on a payment plan, and that still keeps you current. And of course, we look at to see if the building's been condemned by Building and Housing. If it's been condemned, what we ask is that you get the building out of condemnation, because very often those violations are interior, and there is a short time frame that Building and Housing wants those taken care of, and then come back to the program, so that your building isn't being condemned and put on some demo list while the storefront program's trying to renovate the outside of it. So those are things that we do. The only other one, to the chair and the council, that has proved very challenging for us is federal prevailing wage. because the federal prevailing wage requires that if you're a contractor with subs or employees and the work is labor intensive and your bid is over $2,000, you have to pay federal prevailing wage to your employees or subs on the job. I brought the prevailing wage rates that we are currently working under. I can leave them with the chair if you like.
Can we pass them out?
But for example,
Kimberly.
masonry contractors, we have a lot of masonry buildings in the city. They are old, they have not been maintained, and they need not just tuck pointing, but often, and you'll see in the Logo Creative Design Studio one in your book, the entire front of the building had to be disassembled and rebuilt because the brick was not stable anymore. That is really a common occurrence now with the age of the building stock in Cleveland. But a cement mason, the prevailing wage rate is $31.50 an hour, but because they also have to pay fringe benefits if those employees or subs are not getting a fringe benefit package, you have to add $20.36 an hour to a total of $51.86 an hour. So $52 an hour, you're just paying for masonry work. And that's not just the only thing we do on the building. So what we find the challenge
on that point,
is...
Mr. Chairman?
Is...
For clarification?
Go ahead, Councilman.
Is this federal standards or is this city standards?
To the chair, to the councilman, these are federal prevailing wage standards.
Because we're using block grant?
Correct.
Okay, just want to make sure.
Right. So what we have is on larger projects, we have contractors, once they do those bids, that many applicants will say, by the time I'm paying those rates and those contractors are submitting weekly payrolls, the benefit of even $50,000 doesn't always make sense for them. Or you have a contractor that says, I don't pay my guys $52 an hour, and if I pay them that on this project, I can't go back and pay them their regular wage on the next one because then I can't keep them. So that has been a challenge. It's always been a challenge. It's tougher now because the cost of materials is also very expensive. So the costs of projects are more expensive. So that has been a challenge.
Thank you for that. And briefly, how have you dealt with that when you have those situations, as you just narrated, with the prevailing wage or submitting weekly payrolls, or the contractor does not want to pay that, he or she does not pay that amount of money to their contractor, and they don't want to start on this project, so then that takes out that contractor from even being able to provide the work. How has the department or applicants dealt with that situation? Briefly, if you can.
To the chair, to the council, at that point, it's an applicant decision on what works best for them. And we are the first people to tell people, this might not be a good fit for you. You know, if there isn't a financial benefit besides the free technical assistance, the free design assistance, I mean, they are coming away with services from the city they are not charged for. They can take that design, and we've seen this. They go and do the project without the rebate, but we still see a renovated building, and we're thrilled when that happens.
Okay. All right. Thank you. Councilman Slife.
Thank you. Excuse me, God. Thank you. I just one more time, and I think you touched on it kind of in the latter half, but through the chair, if a census tract is determined to be not a slum and blight, it has to meet what was the low mod standard, and something you said about kind of a regional draw. Could you just repeat it one more time?
Sure. To the chair, to the councilman. So if I have a business in a building, I am looking at what type of business it is. And in the methodology that we put together in 2017, we made assumptions of businesses that were more local draw, which would be 2 miles, slightly larger customer radius of 3 miles, or 5 miles, which would be a draw, again, we either call them specialty, you know, like an event center.
Sure.
Restaurants, full-service restaurants versus a 3 mile might be a limited service restaurant, like a takeout, right? I could share that sheet with you. So I go on a database that Assistant Director Wacker's put together, and I look up the parcel number for that building, and then based on the type of business I know that is in the building or coming into the business, and we're going to be doing signage with them on that building, then I do the 2, 3, or 5 mile radius, depending on the type of business, and make sure that I can meet a low mod objective of over 51%. And honestly, that happens that I can usually meet a low mod objective in almost every single case, including your neighborhood.
Okay. Thank you, and you kind of segued me into my next question. Billy, when through the chair was the last slum and blight study? It was just recent, right?
Assistant Director?
So 2017, we were required to revise it every 10 years at a minimum.
Okay. I thought it was more recent than that, but thank you. Could you, as I asked earlier in the day, that study's done in-house. Could you just kind of characterize how that determination is made, what the standards are for slum and blight? Because bluntly, there was a lot of different realities in the ward I represent, but especially one stretch of Lorraine where there was a vacant shopping plaza, a number of vacant buildings, and we're very surprised that at least that one stretch wasn't considered slum and blight. So I guess with what I don't want to do is make it harder for Miss Sandy to be doing her job, trying to kind of fit everything in this low mod because of how we're determining slum and blight. But could you kind of characterize how that determination is made?
Yeah. So through the chair to the councilman, we are required to make a determination based on geographic area, typically based on census block and even down to block group. But within those, you need to show that there is a condition of blight, which is defined as having 25% of the structures not
20.
having what? 20% of the structures that have some don't meet local housing code in some capacity.
So thank you. Is it specifically 25% of all structures meeting code or housing structures meeting housing code?
Through the chair to the councilman, it's all structures.
Okay. And I bring it up because I think the disconnect might be, and there's pockets like this around the city where I think the side streets with the homes are doing okay, but the main retail corridors there is vacancy, there is blight, as we would kind of describe it casually. And even in cases where buildings are, a lot of underutilized buildings where kind of people are using a storefront as storage because it's cheaper than getting a storage unit in. And I guess with as HUD relates to this program, I'm not saying this adversarially, but it seems that our intent of kind of reinvigorating our corridors could potentially be held back by the slum and blight analysis, which is looking beyond our retail corridors. Is it correct to kind of make that conjecture?
Through the chair, slum and blight is used as a much bigger thing, so it's not just commercial slum and blight. So when we say that, it is going to take in that residential as well, because it could determine a whole number of things. But I definitely hear your sentence.
Yeah, it's to the degree through the chair that Terry's able to kind of use that low mod qualification, that's good. But if it comes up with those instances where it isn't available, I guess I would be interested in what we can do as the city programmatically to kind of try to not have them wait to come back, kind of provide the service still. Because I can tell you in the neighborhood that I represent, we're in direct competition with Lakewood, and Lakewood has programs. So if we're not going to provide the program because of a technicality, as we're trying to reinvigorate our main streets, then we are putting ourselves at a strategic disadvantage. And there's especially in the communities on the fringe of the city where people very casually drive into the next suburb over to do their shopping just because that's where stuff is. We're trying to bring some of that home, and I want to make sure that we can do that. So it's passion point of mine. And then I'll just say this is, and I'll come upstairs and sit down with you on this, but prior to being on in this seat, working with the CDC, we had talked about kind of a storefront-like program on Rock River Drive to attempt to help some of these kind of underutilized property owners do some cosmetic things, kind of bring some new life to the street. And I asked about the Native American requirements. The one thing we struggled with was the city required us to issue a code violation. And there's like a 30-day requirement to respond to the code violation. But in using federal funds, there's like a 45-day window that the U.S. Tribal Council determines that disturbing the ground isn't going to damage culturally sensitive artifacts. So we recognize that if we were to go forward with this program, we were essentially asking property owners to not comply with the Building and Housing Department so that they could potentially become eligible. And it was an example of how block grant and federal funds aren't always your friends. So I say that to my colleagues just as we were talking earlier about how do we think through how we use block grant. A lot of that conversation, I think the CDC network takes up a lot of the oxygen in that conversation, but there are other aspects, whether it's what I just described or, prevailing wage or other things that can maybe hold us back. And I think that the whole totality of block grant should probably be within these conversations. And it's probably not this or something completely different. Maybe it's a both and option, but how do we kind of leverage all of our resources to be getting more stuff over the line? So yeah, thanks.
Man, you're right on time.
Thank you.
All right.
Sorry, I thought I was short.
No. You were coming up. You had about 20 more seconds, but you're good. Councilman Joe Jones.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. This is a sore subject for me. And it's a sore subject because of the source of money we're using. And this, Mr. Chairman, and I like the storefront person who does the program, God bless her soul. Here's the issue, is that your entire staff has ran out of block grant money. So then, therefore, you're subjected to the block grant rules for storefront renovation, correct? Is there somehow, Mr. Chairman, to the director, we can create a program that's going to be efficient? We so greatly need to improve the appearance, of our commercial district. We need to support, the properties and businesses owners' efforts to improve the buildings exterior in our neighborhood. We need to contribute to, which all of that helps to contribute to the economic development of the neighborhood. One of the problems that we're having right now is retaining our existing businesses. And part of the issue is because there is no new development happening in our neighborhood on our commercial districts. When we see storefront renovation programs that are very successful, it sort of catches a fire hit. Other businesses want to improve their storefronts. Everyone is trying to improve in the area. It makes it attractive not only to retain existing businesses, but also to bring in new businesses into the neighborhood. But with the program that we have right now, just listening to Terry Sandy talk, the problem is it almost seems like Washington or the block grant is trying to kill Cleveland off. It almost seems like they're our enemies. They're not our friends. And I submit to you, Director, we're going to have to do a hybrid here, using ARPA funds. Now, we gave $10 million away to a lottery ticket to a workforce development crew that came here and didn't even give us a full presentation. We passed off on it. We didn't even have the breakdown of where the $10 million was going to go. And this council passed off on it. And they wasn't going to do anything different than what they have already been doing for the last 10 years, and we don't see no improvements. And they didn't tell us anything about what they were going to do anything different. So the storefront renovation program is the same way. It has to be able to tell us a different story. And so my proposition is, can we create some kind of hybrid where people like me want to put money into a storefront renovation program that can efficiently and effectively help the citizens of our neighborhood. The young lady who works in our storefront program has been very diligently. She put some things down. I want to read those off, and I'll send the email over to you so you can have it. She said, let me get my glasses. The storefront renovation program is not successful at times because there are too many HUD regulations. Most projects don't qualify via HUD. And then she gave an example of daycare centers having to spend extra dollars to hire lead specialists, and their project will be more costly because of this. Then there is the question of environmental review. We talked a little bit about that, which may require a project to complete the phase 1 and phase 2, which again, this is again, another yoke put down upon the businesses and the citizens in the city of Cleveland, preventing them from being able to even access the money. What good is it to have the money and you can't use it? That doesn't make sense to me. That's the reason why Cleveland is the poorest city in the nation. This is a lot of money, she says, especially if phase 2 is required. I'm not sure if beauty salons qualify via HUD regulations. So does beauty salons qualify for storefront renovations?
To the chair, to the councilman, yes, they do.
Okay. The main business that seems to make it through are restaurants and regular corner stores. Docks on Harbor Fine Cuisine, that's the first time we've ever in the history of Ward 1 have had a sit-down restaurant. The last time we had one was in the 1960s, and Italians ran it. It was a supper club way back in the day. So since the Italians left out of the neighborhood, we haven't had a quality sit-down restaurant. So this is what she says about Docks on Harbor's Fine Cuisine in Ward 1. Storefront renovation project, and business owner may or may not recommend the storefront renovation program to others because the process was quite tedious for the owners. Auto shops were a part of the program, but are no longer because of HUD guidelines. Is that true, Mr. Chairman, to the director?
To the chair, to the councilman, auto-related facilities are generally not eligible because of phase 1. So that's, and because of other environmental concerns. We also are trying to concentrate our funds on traditional display windowed buildings because there are so many of those in the city that we haven't done.
Okay. We have 2 projects on hold because the business owners have not submitted their URA forms. These are forms that tenants must sign and or complete. It would be better if we had a different pot of money to assist merchants with their facades that is not connected to HUD dollars. And all these extreme regulations, or at least a pot of money for signage, a project that basically has to go through design review and building the housing via permit being pulled. So she just gave me a quick shot of things that are the issues here with the program. I'll submit to you, Director, that, again, I hate block grant money. I hate even thinking about it. I hate the fact that we have to sit here and just squeeze blood out of a turnip just to get, a project here, a little small project there. That's not building to scale. It's not building to mass. It's not supporting our citizens. It's not supporting our businesses. If we have a really good, vibrant storefront renovation program, it would explode off the seams. And that's what you want. You want to have 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12 projects coming out of each neighborhood. And so I would like to work with you, if that's possible, to talk about how I can put my funds into a program and don't be encumbered with all of that goes on there. Is that possible, Mr. Chairman, to Director?
Through the chair, I am always, like I have said at this table time and time again, there's nothing that's off the table. So I am more than happy to talk to you. I'm more than happy to talk to you.
And then I was told that someone was, I don't know who, but aren't we working with ARPA funds to put together a really good, robust storefront renovation program? And again, Mr. Chairman, it comes down to, and if we're not, we should be. Because if we can't take care of our own city, then who is? So are we going to do that, Mr. Chairman?
So the discussion that is happening is around commercial corridor activation. And so, yes, that is happening. Conversation between administration and council around how do we activate commercial corridors through renovation, through vacant lot enhancements, and so forth. So it's not just for storefront, because just doing the storefront won't help a corridor. It sometimes requires vacant lot beautification and may call for those surfaces to be disturbed, like sidewalks and curbs in the area.
You're
So that
talking
is
about a
happening.
whole proposition, a project
Correct.
kind of scenario. So, but I would say, Mr. Chairman, that we still need to have storefront set aside to itself, because some neighborhoods might not, and that seems like that's going to be a cash cow and eat up a whole lot of money. So I would like to say we put some of those funds to the side for this, so that our neighborhoods will have the flexibility without the HUD regulations, and we could really start firing away on our own if we have the opportunity. The problem is for years we haven't had nobody on that side of the hall that have any visions about creating change, and we need it. And if they can't create the change, then we need to create our own program and then make the change. And I think you hear some of our council members talk about that here at this table. And so I don't have a problem sitting down with the director and talking about seeing what that looks like, but we do need to have a set-aside storefront renovation program. And we can have the cash cow over there, all right? But we need to put some cash over here for storefront, and it needs to stand alone. And we need to start hammering away at the Southeast, because we have not, unfortunately, we have not been able to get our fair share. And as citizens of Southeast, we feel cheated. We feel that you have robbed us. When we go on one side of town and see it totally different than it is on our side of town, we feel robbed. And you always hear Kevin talk about this at the table. When they come, when the citizens come to him and talk to him, they're dealing with him in those meetings. They don't see the administration on this side at those sessions, those meetings. They're looking at us and they're saying, why can't you get it done? And then we tell them we can't get it done because of all this gook that you had in here at the table. And like we just heard about what the state of Ohio has to say about how much the value of a parcel is going to be and all that nonsense. At the end of the day, we need to be able to cut through all the malarkey and be able to get this city on track and moving forward like other great cities have been moving forward. And one of those cities, and I say this constantly because they don't have the ambiance our city has, which is this lake, is Memphis. And they're growing by leaps and bounds. And we shouldn't be left in the dust while all the other great American cities are growing, and Cleveland is stuck like a turtle in the mud. And that's all I have to say, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Councilman, for your remarks. And as I said, I didn't say that's what we're going to do, but I said that's a discussion we're having. So we are considering whether it is standalone, whether it encompasses all of those. But we absolutely share your same concern that storefront, we need to look at other ways to support the storefront program, to provide support to those that the program will not be able to help, that are not storefront, that has in and out traffic for whatever retail products that they are serving. All right. So thank you. Seeing no further questions from the committee, we're going to move on to bank relations. Thank you. Mr. Aaron, they've been waiting on you.
Just relax. Yeah, they knew what they were doing. They was trying to tire us out. I would not be tired.
Through the chair, Councilwoman, I would venture to say, are we trying to tire you out, or are we trying to leave you leave you on a high, right?
Okay, we made a small revision on the document.
Did we get this?
Thank you. We're in the next page.
8, right behind 8-2.
This is just revised. Now.
Thank you. Okay.
Oh, it's revised.
Thank you. Thank you, Chairman. Our last program for the day is our Bank Relations Program, which has a budget of $0 for you all. But I know we had some preview time yesterday introducing Aaron Kinney, our new bank relations person, and I will say we're going to come up with a better name since we are focused on generational wealth. But I don't think the czar of generational wealth will work quite yet, but we're working on that. But we're super excited, and I'm excited because this is an area where I feel like we can really double down and find some immediate wins. Since I've been here for the last year, we have said several times that we can only do so much. We can only do so much with Block Grant. We can only do so much in the general fund. As a city, we can only do so much putting in. It really is the private market that we need to, be bringing to the table. So I will stand back and Aaron will talk to us about his program. I do want to note he is new, so we are. There's lots of things that we're trying, but we are excited that he is here.
How new is Aaron?
Aaron is 3 months.
3 months.
Have we done your 3-month evaluation?
We're nearing 3 months.
We're
March
nearing.
12th.
Okay. All right.
Okay.
All right, Brother Aaron, it's on you.
Through the chair to the council, thank you very much for having me today. Again, my name is Aaron Kinney. I am the Neighborhood Reinvestment Coordinator and Bank Relations Manager for this department. Previously a loan closing officer for Fifth Third Bank. I was excited to transition into this role after initial conversation with the director and assistant director. We discussed strategies on how to create a more aggressive approach to partnering with our banks and area lenders. Not only create a more aggressive approach to do that, but also we discuss ways to how the city can be better partners in that manner. Part of how we can accomplish this is using data, information to help accomplish that goal and really lead the conversation that way. So part of our presentation, what we brought here to you today was a one-page document along with our presentation. But I am very excited to connect, collaborate, and serve alongside you all.
Thank you. Before you begin your presentation, you were here on day one yesterday. You've been listening and you hear the conversations. You hear that members of this body is not satisfied with the level of lending that most of the banks have been doing, with really all of them. And throughout the city of Cleveland, redlining is real and is still happening today. So everybody that's sitting here is going to tell you about redlining in their neighborhood and how bad it is and the issues and the effects that it has had on our neighborhoods, which is all legitimate, all right? You're going to hear, I'm sure you already know, we're not holding them accountable. There's no strategy. There's no agreement here with the city of Cleveland. And so as the chair, I'm really interested in hear if your presentation is, I'm just giving it to you now in case your presentation don't have it, how we intend to address these situations and hold them accountable. All the soapbox stuff and all the other rhetoric that, folks will give us, that's okay. But I'm interested in the strategy. How are we going to deal with these 13, 14 lending institutions? 16. Oh, we got a couple more. 16 storefront lending institutions that are right here in the city of Cleveland who is not pulling their weight, who is not doing what we need to do at the level, and who is consistently, to this day in 2023, are redlining communities all across the city of Cleveland, right? And the little bit of this and a little bit of that they provide and give for programming and support and grants to neighborhoods that are not at the level that they should be. Isn't that right, Councilwoman House? That's right. And so, Mr. Aaron, Mr. Kinney, I am wanted to provide that information before you get into your presentation, because if it's not there, I want you to make sure that you talk about it in some way to address some of the things that I've just mentioned. Thank you.
To the chair, thank you. I share that sentiment and will definitely be working towards a better strategy and how to accomplish that. As we move forward, you should have that one-pager now in front of you. I'll explain a little bit of what that is and how we're using that as a tool. But this is just a part of the agenda that we'll be working through today. The Community Reinvestment Act, which I'm sure you all are familiar with, is a federally regulated initiative, and municipalities have access to that information that banks and lending institutions submit. The resource that we can pull is the Home Mortgage Lending Disclosure Act resource that's out there. This, as we move on to the next slide, this is interesting stats in regards to the city of Cleveland. In 2021, there was $1.5 billion in residential lending in the city of Cleveland. 16 banks operate within the city. The HMDA data breaks this down into the banks that we're reviewing today. Not all 16 banks responded to the lending disclosure and affidavit of intent that was put out to be an eligible bank depository to hold city funds. Those that did were JP Morgan Chase, Key Bank, and US Bank. As we look at residential lending trends as a whole, for every one application approved, 0.68 are denied from minority borrowers, compared to 0.25 for white borrowers and 0.47 for others that have not disclosed their race or ethnicity. The HMDA data, of course, breaks this down into each lending institution that we're reviewing today. Moving on to the next slide here. This is actually part of one of my favorite slides, looking at the one-pager. This infograph chart is located on the bottom left of that document. And you can see JP Morgan Chase's numbers. Just sharing a quick stat here, less than 25% of lending occurs in majority minority neighborhoods. You can see where the majority of their lending activity is, clearly. Moving on to US Bank.
Well, can you go through that real quick, Mr.
Sure.
Chairman? No, I see it. I just want to.
Okay.
When we talk about area total loan, that's where the loans are being made. So basically, 41% of the loans as of that time period was in the Detroit Shoreway.
Mr. Kenny, can you just briefly elaborate on that piece again?
Through the chair to the council member, this is where we actually broke down. The HMDA shows the loan amount in dollar amount. We decided, putting our heads together with the director and assistant director, we decided to show this in percentages because it shows a clear disparity when we talk in percentages, and we hope to accomplish an easier way to show this information. Yes, Detroit Shoreway, Ohio City, Tremont. We got to the 41% by taking the dollar amount of the number of loans that were serviced in that area, divided by that total of lending, and it's, again, dollar amount in that category.
So just to further clarify, and Aaron, again, correct me if I'm wrong. So the total there. So this total would add up to 100, right? This column. So the share of it is 26% went to West Park of the total.
That
right?
is correct.
Compared to Metro West, which had under 1%.
Under 1%.
To be clear.
That is correct.
Okay, and that those that have that heart, and as I know you won't even believe me, but Assistant Director said those need a little bit more love, so let's put a heart on it. I don't know. It was around Valentine's Day. I don't know.
And
he was in a mood, but those are those are majority minority neighborhoods indicated with that.
Is what I've been saying for the last 5 years.
Mm-hmm.
Can you finish, Director?
Yes, I am finished clarifying. Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you, Director.
Just real quickly, so we talked about the total area. Now, white total is pretty obvious that those are the borrowers who would disclose themselves as white. Minority are those that disclose themselves as people of color and Hispanic. And then the other is where the lender either that data is missing, or more likely, it's about a corporate entity of some sort or a limited liability company, so an investing entity. So I think that as you go through and see, this is just J.P. Morgan Chase, but that's pretty telling when you go through the banks and see how their lending practices actually are geographically dispersed, as well as racially and even non-racially when it comes to investors.
Thank you. Go ahead, Ms. Kinney.
Through the chair, again, going back to the U.S. Bank infograph, you can see and take a look at the Glenville, Huff, and Central area. There is virtually no lending activity in the year 2021 for U.S. Bank.
Wow.
Moving on to KeyBank's infograph and snapshot. KeyBank, excluding downtown, less than 14% of lending occurred in majority minority neighborhoods.
All of them combined.
All combined, correct.
And that's just 3 institutions, correct, Mr. Chairman, to the distinguished gentleman?
Now, remember, we have order. We're not just blurting out our questions.
I asked you. I said through the chair.
We need to be in order on how we are going to ask questions to Mr. Kinney and the CD staff.
For clarification, Mr. Chairman, that's these 3 here that we're looking at are 3 banks. These are just 3 banks. Is that correct, Mr. Chairman?
Through the chair, that is not correct. We are looking at each of the 3 banks that we are looking at, that we have analysis on, have their own sheet. So we are now on the U.S. bank sheet.
But right now we have 3 banks we're looking at right now.
3 banks that we're looking at total, 1 per sheet.
I see.
So the one-pager snapshot, it just serves as the individual bank's outlook for the year 2021.
Wow. Okay.
Moving on, we can take a look at bank initiatives and programming highlights or program highlights. That is located throughout this document, but more specifically, taking a look at the section titled CRA Performance Evaluation in the middle, on the middle left-hand portion of the one-pager. You can see that each bank is actually J.P. Morgan Chase, U.S. Bank, and KeyBank is participating in the Bank on Cleveland initiative. They each have down payment assistance as far as residential lending is concerned. Home improvement initiatives, all except for J.P. Morgan Chase. It has a clear outline on home improvement initiatives. Each bank is participating in minority and women-owned business programming throughout the city. And finally, this is a last-minute add to this particular portion of the slides. Existing city depositories, so those banks that are currently having agreements with the city to hold city funds, which is KeyBank, PNC Bank, and Huntington Bank. PNC Bank and Huntington Bank did not submit to be eligible city depositories for this upcoming years moving forward. And with that, we will take any questions.
Mr. Chairman, if I may, before we go to questions. I do want to be extraordinarily transparent and fair. So we have been setting up since Aaron has been on board, we've been setting up meetings. Prior to Aaron coming on board, I had been meeting with community development folks and banking professionals, as well as others in the administration. So what I will say is that while these numbers are not good, they're they're really, well, these numbers are beyond not good. But what we have are folks willing to come to the table, and they're looking for leadership, and that is what we intend to provide and bring to the table. These banking professionals have asked, what is it that you need? And we have the first part of identifying what we need them to do is identifying what they've done, right? So this is a researcher's approach, if you will, to addressing the issues, really understanding what the lending behaviors are, so that we can better tailor what our asks are. And we have gotten very good responses from these bankers. And when we met and went over these numbers, there was sometimes a little. It's hard to look at. It's hard to see your organization like this. And I have no doubt that that these partners, as well as others, will continue to come to the table, and we will all do better together. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Director, Assistant Director, do you want to chime in on that too, or no?
I just want to respond to your question earlier about what is the path forward. What does that look like specifically? I think we all know that this is a space that we need to really be involved in, show some leadership. We started with the 3 banks because those are the first 3 that responded to an open request to hold the city depository funds. But there are 16 institutions in the city of Cleveland that we should be engaging with, not just the ones that hold city deposits. And there's 700 institutions that lend and provide loans in any given year in the city of Cleveland. If we only work with the 3 that hold city deposits, we're probably only scratching, less than, single digits of the amount of financing that occurs in the city. Why I bring that up is that the current ordinance that governs what Aaron's job is really solely focused on those single-digit institutions that we would have an agreement to hold city deposits for. It's wholly inadequate approach in order to really move the needle on lending in the city of Cleveland if you're only working with 3 out of the 700 potential lenders in the city. We should, as a policy, and the ordinance should really say that we should have an agreement with every single banking institution that has a retail branch services in the city of Cleveland, as well as determining what number of the top mortgage institutions that serve the city of Cleveland, such as Rocket Mortgage being one of the larger ones, but so that we capture enough of the market share that we are engaging with those and making sure those players in this market are acting also not just in their financial interests, but also in the city's interests as well. Sorry. Go ahead. And I think the key aspect is we've sort of done this as a voluntary approach, which is fine. I think a lot could be accomplished in a voluntary approach, but that should not hold the city sort of hostage if they choose not to participate with us. The one tool that we have never ever used is the ability for the city of Cleveland to do its own assessments on how the banks are performing, and then formally submit that to the bank's public file. Now, the public file is a framework under the regulators, either U.S. Treasury or the Office of Currency Control. They review the public file, and that basically allows them to monitor and make determinations on where there's disparity, where there's gaps in service, and then put the bank on notice and ask, okay, City of Cleveland placed this assessment in your public file. How did you respond to that? And that way we are actually pulling in the U.S. Treasury Department and the Office of Currency Controller. The current ordinance doesn't give us that mechanism unless the administration feels comfortable to do so. I've made previous requests, not to this administration, in order to pursue something along those lines. I think there needs to be some leadership to say that this is the space we need to be working in, as opposed to always trying to do everything voluntarily in this space.
So sorry, Chairman.
Go ahead.
I do want to note that these are also our Bank On collaborators, so they have come to the table here as well, and that as far as actionable items are concerned, along with the goal of having land bank. A proposal for how we're going to do land bank going forward. Part of Aaron's first 90 days or first 6 months. I can't remember what goal I set for you, but we'll also be taking recommendations on how we move in this work and what's the most effective way to do that. So there will be a forthcoming proposal on how we best address what we see in front of us today.
All right. Thank you for the presentation. Thank you for the comments. Director, I agree with you. It's something you and I have talked about. Is your time serving as interim and is your time assistant director as well? I asked that question, I don't know if it was last year or the year before. Have we ever submitted, complaints to the folks that you just stated? And the answer to me at that time was no, we have not. And I just didn't understand why. And now it's a bit more clear that this is voluntary, and our ordinance only covers the banks who serve as depositories for the city of Cleveland. Well, that's the problem. Mr. Titron, can you get that ordinance, work with Mr. Wackers to get a copy of that ordinance, please, that speaks to that? And, that is absolutely a place that we need to start for sure. And I look forward to that continued conversation with the department and the council leadership on how we want to best work with administration to move in that direction. Because if we don't, nothing will ever change. Things will continue as they are. Thank you to the banks who voluntarily stepped up and responded and provided information. Who's like, hey, let's have conversations. What can we do? But we need to make sure that we do everything that we can, or we should be doing, in 601 Lakeside in order to help move the needle for our community and for our residents. So, with that being said, we're going to go to Councilman Joe Jones, and then Councilman House, and then Councilman Harsh.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I appreciate you being kind of firm with looking at and getting an analysis. And thank you, Aaron. You seem to be kind of sharp. I'm glad you took the job, and you have a lot of work ahead of you.
He said kinda, so no, I'm just joking.
Through the chair, thank you, Councilman.
So this is a issue near and dear to my heart because I've been sitting here at the table pounding and banging and making some of my colleagues upset and angry. And your predecessor, then the chairman of our committee was Anthony Brancatelli, and Kerry McCormick, myself, and then I can't think of his name. Yes, Bashir Jones. We had asked then the president and the chairman if we could set aside a special working committee to deal with this issue of redlining in our communities. And you can clearly see the despair and the difference in these numbers that you have brought before us. And they're egregious and horrible at best. And it shows the reason why our city is not moving forward. We have a tale of two cities, the haves and the have-nots. And we've watched 50 years of policy from the executive and legislative branch of government to select communities that were going to win and communities that were going to lose. And then in the proposition of it all, the banks are doing the same thing. So with that, Mr. Chairman, to Aaron, can you provide for us all 16 institutions, all of the financial banks with their names, addresses, and the people who are the heads of those banks?
Through the chair to the council member, yes.
And then, Mr. Chairman, I would like to
Councilman,
also
if I could
request
include that, not just CEO, but also the board as well, a board composition as well. Normally,
so can we get a portfolio, in other words, Mr. Chairman, to Aaron, that gives us a breakdown of the financial institution and any other corresponding data information that, how much money that they have in their banks, like a bio of the bank, so to speak.
Through the chair to the council, yes, I'll put that together and deliver that.
And then, Mr. Chairman, The Community Reinvestment Act was put in place in 1977 to encourage financial institutions to invest in low-income areas, in communities that have not been serviced with loans and having loans. When you look at the housing, and we talked about that here at this table we're just nausea about it, about our housing stock. When I have a resident who lives in my neighborhood that wants to get a $25,000 or $30,000 loan to buy the next door home, and then is told that the bank won't give them the money, and so then, since the bank won't give them that $30,000 to purchase that home then therefore goes to an investor, who then comes into our neighborhoods and purchases a home and put a Section 8 house in there, or put someone else in there that home, and they bring the entire value of that house down and the community down. And I've seen 1 or 2 or 3 houses destroy an entire beautiful street. And so I'm just sharing with you some of the problems that people like me who are elected in office have to deal with on a daily basis, is investors coming into the neighborhood, being able to purchase those homes when our residents should have first deal with that, but they can't get the loan. And it's been so bad, Mr. Chairman, so bad it has been, that it's the same way with some of the jobs here in the city of Cleveland. You need not apply for getting a loan from the bank because you ain't gonna get it. So don't waste your time. And that's been the feeling of the neighborhood. And for business people like me, small businesses, I couldn't get a loan from any of our financial institutions to expand my business. And that was really horrible for me at the time, because all I needed was enough money to be able to buy supplies and materials and pay for labor costs. And I couldn't get it from these financial institutions. And so you have 2 issues, being able to give loans to people who have homes and property and equity, as well as giving loans to people who are small businesses. And that's what we're talking about here at this table too, that the Director's Department has, having and finding qualified contractors to do the work that the city needs to have. But because these long history of redlining in our financial institutions have devastated our neighborhood. And then, Mr. Chairman, I'm going to ask this question. As you're moving forward, what is your outline and future and vision of how you're going to move this department forward, 1? And then 2, I would like to be a part of your working group or your working committee to help do that. Can I get it?
Your own.
Good, thank you.
Your own.
Great. Are you going to be on it with me?
No, I'm not.
Okay. So who else will we have?
We're going to work it out.
Oh,
But
great.
You're the first person that I told the director before, as we start this process, you need to be a part of that process.
Yes, thank you.
All right.
And so I would love to sit down. I'm not going to rest it and just let the gentleman talk. Thank you.
Mr. Giddy?
Through the chair to the council, I would agree. We are looking at trying to create an equitable process throughout the city. I personally am a Northeast Ohio native. I spent the first part of my childhood in the Huff area. My family then moved out to Shaker Heights. But I got to see a lot of the meetings that my parents participated in, a lot of the ward in community engagement that Fannie Lewis put together,
yes.
Coming up as a kid. These things were, impressionable on me, and I wanted to figure out ways that I could help and really bring my experience and kind of speak the language between both sides. I think just my experience in financial services and banking, I can bring a different path or different way of looking at how we can address things like underwriting policy, for one, how banks assess risk, and really shape tools in our vision here, so we, again, be better partners.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
All right. Thank you, Councilman. You finished before your time.
I told you I'm good. You only got me one time.
Thank you. All right, Councilman. Councilwoman House. And then Harsh will wrap us up.
Yes, thank you to the chairman, to the director. So we are talking about, this is it this, some of the snapshot was from our ordinance at 178.05. Is this a part of that ish, maybe?
So this is an envisioning of how we want the process to go. We want to do independent verification of the lending data. Under the ordinance, it's always been the banks would voluntarily give us the data based on an Excel sheet that was really too big for anyone to understand. And we wanted to get everything that was important down to one page. We don't need to know the extraneous stuff. Aaron did an excellent job really distilling it down and refining it. And I really, we've tested it out with the banks a little bit. I don't know if Aaron wants to tell you how they reacted, but it was pretty, on my part, a little humorous. But I think Aaron's really taking this in a direction that we need to. Not just him and his background and experience that I'm really leaning on, but I'm also leaning on Jeff Kucharski here, our budget manager. He is a whole, this is his second career here at City of Cleveland. He had another one with the banking institutions, and his experience on the inside has really also given us an insight. And
through the chair of the committee, I was actually recruited away from the city by a bank. And I'm sure you all remember First Merit. We were it was an opportunity I couldn't pass up, and I would not be here today if it were not for the experience. I have a background in systems management. I tend to look at things as a system. You got to understand the parts, how you're going to move in that system, and then be agile and flexible to succeed in it. There's a lot of low-hanging fruit here. I didn't work directly in the CRA department, but touched it a lot. We were Northeast Ohio's best-kept secret, and we were the greatest story never told. It was a great bank. When we worked with the municipality in terms of getting their deposits, we fully expected some reciprocity in terms of helping that community, and we had local decision making in all the areas we were in. So and we wanted that good CRA score, so there should be no fear to approach these banks and tell them what you want. I think you just have to have the conversations. I think the other thing you have to look at too is we're shifting community development towards housing. The housing stock in Cleveland needs to be changed and updated. ARPA money's coming in. That's going to be a great story to tell 10, 15 years down the road. If I'm a CEO of a bank, I want my name attached to that effort. So, again, don't be afraid to have these conversations. I think you just have to tell the story. There's ears that will be willing to listen at these banks. You just have to have the conversations.
Thank you, Jeff.
Yes, thank you. Through the chair to the director, I know we had talked about I just wanted a clarification. You talked about there are 16 banks that had retail establishment and then 7 other institutions. Is that what you said? What did you say? What's the number 7?
There's 16 banks that have retail branches in Cleveland. There's 700 institutions that lend to residents in Cleveland in any given year.
Oh, 700.
Yes.
Institutions. And do those institutions include mortgage companies? Is that inclusive of that 700 that you were saying?
Yeah, your mortgage brokers is included in that. So
Okay.
and that's the number that we see when we pull up the data on lending in every given year. There's around 700 institutions.
Okay, through the chair to the director. So what is our timeline to have a plan that we can then move upon?
Through the chair to the council member, we are currently meeting and having discussion with some of our banking institutions, some of our mortgage lenders in the area. We actually have discussed a 6-month outlook on where things could be from the point of where I started in the role, and in 6 months from that point. I think right now, representatives from those institutions are receptive to what we're saying and trying to utilize a tool to address some of the disparity issues across our neighborhoods. That takes me to the point of following up and having routine appointments with those representatives. And again, my colleague Jeff mentioned that banks want to participate. I think what I'm hearing now is there had been some frustration in the past with the ordinances, the agreements set out by the city. They really are encouraged by us taking a look at possibly revising some of those agreements and creating more of a memorandum of understanding between both sides, all for the benefit of our residents, helping to improve the quality of life. So.
Okay. Okay. Well, I know this is. I appreciate you all giving this. This gives us something to at least digest, and being able to be put in a situation that we can move forward to just get a better return on things that were generationally. I asked, how are we utilizing the connection to the federal government, right? Because a lot of times the federal government has a standard of sorts. Like what role would or should the federal government play? Because they have these standards and regulations. How could we leverage that to our benefit to ensure we are righting many of the past wrongs in this process? That makes sense.
Through the chair to the councilwoman, I'm not sure. I don't know. I don't believe we have an answer to that right now. But we're certainly we're not going to leave any rock unturned, and we're going to go after whatever resources we can to get what we need and to help further the conversation. Again, this is one of those wicked issues that we talked about yesterday. That is going to be an all-land approach. They always are, right? And we're going to have to attack it from multiple ways, including potentially some lobbying and help from the federal agency. We have we have also met not only with our banking partners, but also with the Cleveland Fed, as well as an organization that I'm completely blanking on. Forgive me, it's been a long 2 days. There's another organization. Do you remember?
Through the chair to the council, the Office of the Controllership of the Currency.
Yes, that office. I also, in addition to these relationships, in addition to what will come from that, we are also using Aaron as a researcher in a lot of ways, looking into land trusts, looking into living wills, and looking and being a part of a national network, a national philanthropic network, talking about connecting housing and generational wealth. So those are other things that will play into the conversation as well. We're not only asking our banking folks, our financial industry to do things and we're just off the hook. We are also actively engaged.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Councilwoman. And Councilor Harston, close us out.
Yeah, thank you. Through the chair to the director, I hate referring to people by the first name until I know them a little bit better. So what is Aaron's last name?
Kinney.
Kinney?
Kinney.
Kinney?
Kinney.
That is correct.
Through the chair to Mr. Kinney. With the HMDA data, you know Frank Ford, he tears this apart every year as well. You and him might have a long conversation.
Through the chair to the council, I am getting familiar with who Frank Ford is.
Okay. So through the chair, I'm curious about this because, one thing about CRA data is that the CRA evaluates banks in like three different main subjects. One, I believe, is lending, residential in particular. I think the other one is banking locations. There used to be a big drive in the 70s to get banks to open up in low-income communities. And I think the third one is philanthropy or just contributions to organizational, like that type of development. And banks have always usually picked one of those to excel in. And I bring that up because Key Bank over here, whereas JP and US are averaging 77-79% of their loans in Detroit, Shoreway, Old Brook, and West Park, Key Bank's still at 37 because Key Bank has never lended in the city of Cleveland. They've always had abysmal record of lending in the city of Cleveland, in any part of the city of Cleveland, but Key Bank will give money to everybody. Like, everybody gets funded by Key Bank because they hit that part of their CRA metric really hard, and all you have to do is, between the three of these categories, average out. If you look, all of these are outstanding ratings, which is just phenomenal. I don't mean like in a good way. I mean, it's just like crazy, right? You look at these lendings, you say this is horrible lending, but if you look in blue right above that, these are all high satisfactory or outstanding CRA results, right? These are considered really good, and I bring that up because one of the problems has always been that money is like a magnet. Money wants to go to where money is, and money wants to run away from where money isn't. And one of the problems we've historically had in this country is that in communities of color and minority communities, there isn't money. Therefore, people don't want to invest in those communities. So when you have low-income communities, people don't want to invest in low-income communities. Banks will give rich people money all day long, but be poor and try to get money. It's really hard. We all know this, right? And this is a problem in low-income communities, regardless of color. You can look in low-income white communities, and you have very, very poor. It is different, and I think this is interesting too, because at JP Morgan, you've actually got a majority minority lending officer department there, which is also fascinating. And it only ticks up their lending in minority communities by like 3%. Like, if you look at the numbers from JP to the US, even though JP has a majority minority lending officers, they're still not lending a whole lot of money in minority communities. And again, money's like a magnet. Where it doesn't exist, people don't want to lend. This is a huge problem we have, which leads me to my question. It does exist. Mr. Kinney, we had this conversation yesterday about banks providing loans to minority contractors to try to build that wealth within the community, particularly when the city is the grantor of the contract. Have you started to have conversations with these banks about making loans available to minority contractors and minority businesses when they have a contract with the city of Cleveland and you know that the city's good for it? Have you started to have that conversation yet through the chair to the
Mr. Kinney?
Mr. Kinney? Through the chair to the council member, yes, I have started to have those conversations. The Urban League is trying to do some work with some of our minority-owned contractors and businesses. Most recently, Dollar Bank seems to be really eager to help participate and get on board with what the Urban League and their UBIZ sector out of Urban League is doing. And I think they were really interested in trying to provide lines of credit to those contractors.
Yes.
Access to capital at the end of the day is what we're trying to address up front. And I think, smaller institutions like Dollar Bank, not these huge institutions in our city, have more of a drive and focus on what a practice is called relationship-based lending. They want to establish a relationship and trust for people, because I think that has been just my own personal experience and what I've seen from the outside looking in. There hasn't been trust, and especially in our communities of color with institutions. So I think an institution like Dollar Bank wants to come in and they see how they can fit into that formula.
Through the chair to the director, Ms. Kinney, I would think, and I'm not a banker, right? But I would think that if somebody comes into a bank and says, I have a contract with the city of Cleveland on a model block to do house work on 5 houses on blah, blah, blah street, I would think that the bank ought to recognize that contract as like gold, like made out of cash. And is there any can we have that conversation that they can accept the contract as proof of capital?
Through the chair, we can certainly have those conversations. You know, when we talk about ARPA and CDBG, we often talk about it in terms of a down payment. And what we mean by that is that if we go to areas that are deemed too risky for the private sector, and
which is where we live,
and we say we're going to invest here, we're going to bring what capital we have. It may not be a ton, but we're gonna be that first domino to fall. And when we do that, we're hoping that that money will help to seed those other dollars. So we know that we're going to have to make it more attractive in those riskier areas. That is really the job of government.
Yeah.
And just acknowledging your earlier comment.
Mr. Chair, whenever somebody comes to me with a proposal, they say, I want to do something in your ward, I always ask them for their capital stack, right? I always say, where's your money at to pay for this? Ideas are wonderful. Show me your money. City contracts ought to count towards a capital stack for folks that are trying to get things done in the neighborhood, and especially for our contractors, especially for our minority contractors that need that line of credit, that ought to count, and we ought to be able to make that argument to a bank when they want to have their name on something. They want to be part of a success story. We've got people that want to work. We've got the funds to pay for it. We ought to be able to make that connection, and I really hope that can be a success story for us very, very soon.
Yeah, I'm sorry, I do want to jump in, but if you look at the neighborhoods that are minority majority, those are really diverse neighborhoods, and there is no census tract in the city of Cleveland that doesn't have people that are very low income, but also middle and upper. Many, so what we call lower income neighborhoods have plenty of people who are in six figures living in there, who can't get a loan on their house because of the lending practices have so undervalued their property.
That's right.
These are the type of practices that banks sort of are complicit in and continue to perpetuate. And unless the city of Cleveland is extremely blunt about what we accept and tolerate,
that's right.
Which I think Aaron has done a wonderful job on this one pager to really drive that home. We want to see that your lending practices are the same with white and minority. It shouldn't be that you're a minority that you have only a 20 or 25% chance of getting a loan, whereas if you're white, you have a greater than 50% chance of getting an approval.
Yeah. I mean, for in no way am I going to stand here and defend banks. There is more money in this nation than has ever been put anywhere on planet Earth in the history of our 4 billion year existence, right? We're the wealthiest thing in the history of Earth. And we ought to be able to crack this nut. And if we can do that, if we can figure out how to get money into the hands of people that are working, we can build wealth, build that generational wealth, and start to end this cycle. So I hope we have good things coming out of this department.
Through the chair, to the council really quickly, I think Assistant Director has given me too much credit for the one-pager. It was definitely a more collective effort. We had some help from our friends down in communications as well to help design a little bit of the document here. So,
And help.
All right, thank you. Councilwoman Gray's going to close us out.
Yes, I just want to make a point. I was watching Good Morning America one day last week, and they had on there, that was Los Angeles, right? Yeah. Los Angeles, the City National Bank was sued $31.2 million for redlining in the black and brown community. And I'm just bringing that point of banks are getting caught for that. And I just want to echo something that Councilwoman House said. She's been talking about this for forever. We need to get up and start going to these different cities that has conquered and open up that door when we are not finding ways to do something differently. And that was aired on Good Morning America, I think it was a month ago, and I put it on my phone. I got up because I watch it every morning, and they said that is the biggest case ever. City National Bank, with HUD, along with HUD, sued them for redlining in black and brown areas, and they got sued for $31 million for that. So, the window is now being opened for redlining against our urban neighborhoods so we can be an economic wealth in our communities. So to that, I just, like I said, sometimes we got to just step out in faith.
That's right. That's right.
And start traveling.
That's right.
Start traveling with Councilwoman House and bringing that information back because it is now happening. And change has to happen now. We got to get out this old system that was built for that time, but the system's not working for it today.
Sure.
And that's why we having all the problems that we having now. And if you still thinking that that's the reason why that this can't continue, then you have to open up your mind because we are the only ones that can make that change because we in that seat today.
That's
so
right.
I just want to bring that point out to what this whole conversation, and it just dawned on me what I took last month and what we're talking about today.
No, I thank you for that. Thank you for sharing that. I'm also aware of situations where that has occurred, where institutions, municipalities and HUD and other partners have gotten together, have went out to these institutions, just as we see now with drug companies for opioid issues that we see, that has been the same, not at the same level. So I'll let the director respond briefly if that is a part of considerations as you all move forward.
Thank you for the opportunity to respond, Chairman. Yeah, absolutely. About 2 weeks ago, actually, right after you were in New York, Aaron was in New York. It is not quite public yet, but there's an initiative that we are a part of where there are 10 other cities or something, 8 other cities involved as well. So Aaron was out there getting trained and hearing from those other cities and cities and counties. And one of the things I told both him and Danette when they came in, and Jeff and I have been talking about this as well. I want to be sending my folks out to find what those best practices are, to go visit and bring that information back home, so that we can have it too.
Definitely.
I just want to thank you, Chairman, for the last 2 days and running an absolutely a good experience. Tiring, yes, but I want to thank you for your time and attention and your leadership, and thank to all the staff and to Assistant Director Wackers and to Jeff Pacharski for being here next to me throughout this time. Thank you.
Thank you, Director. Thank you for the kind words. Always a pleasure to work with you all. Doors are always open, always one call away. Thank you to council staff. Ms. Kimberly Moss has been doing this for the entire month of February. Mr. Joe Titron, has been on deck. Other council staff that is not here presently. They went through budget hearings, budget retreats, budget reviews. I was talking to Mr. Titron last night about, 8 o'clock. We were going through items. So thank you to council staff and all the members of council who have participated in the last 3 weeks in this process, 4 weeks in this process. It's much needed and is what we have to do and what we need to do to truly figure out what it is that we need to do to support the residents of the city of Cleveland. Thank you for your responses today. Thank you for providing information. We still have a little bit more information that we requested that we'll be waiting on. And then to members and those who are listening, the reconciliation process, if there's anything that members would like to make recommendations for amendments or changes, please submit those to myself and Mr. Titron, and we will make sure we review them with leadership and work with the department, and we'll go from there. All right? Thank you all.